again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Jim Cornette Experience. I am Jim Cornette, broadcasting from a secure location on the outskirts of Louisville, Kentucky. And folks, tonight, or today, or whenever the fuck you're listening to this, we're going to talk about the Wednesday Night Wars getting even uglier. Not the promotional tactics, just the matches. And also in honor of Road Warrior Animal, we're going to have some memories and a watch-along of the Road Warriors against the Midnight Express. All that and so much more on the program today. We've done so many programs lately, I can't even remember which program this is. I thought he might be going to introduce me, but instead I will introduce him. Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you, the proprietor of the all-new takeout and delivery only French Toast Chateau. Ooh, what a rush. The great Brian Last.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again. I know we have a lot to talk about, but of course, like everyone else, very sad to hear about the passing of Road Warrior Animal.
Well, and I had heard, maybe I haven't been on the interwebs a lot today, but I'd heard that the family was going to put out a statement later on. That was yesterday. Did that statement ever come? Do we have any other further details at this point?
I will look for it. I didn't see something. I would have thought I would have seen it from somewhere, but I'll see while we're talking here if I can find anything.
But, 60 years old, and the last time I saw him, which we'll talk about, he looked like Road Warrior Animal. But anyway, we will talk about that later on here on the program. The Wednesday Night Wars, all kinds of other stuff going on. But I'm serious. When we were about to start this, and I realized that we have been doing this more often lately because I took a couple days off for my birthday festivities, but still we did the same amount of shows we usually do. So they've been coming back to back to back. We're hot-shotting. Starting to hit that accelerator too hard, Brian Last. It could be, are we hot-shotting the territory? Apparently not. We're still selling out. So maybe it's not at a crisis point yet. Maybe even though I can't remember what show I'm doing, the people still enjoy it.
It's not hot-shotting if you keep having to add more seats.
There you go. Good idea. Good way to put it. And maybe also, am I even more popular and more palatable when I don't really know what the fuck it is that I'm doing exactly and just have to bluster through it?
I guess. But
there may be
I never thought of that, but
well, because the less I prepare, the more the numbers go up. I was, when I watched the Wednesday Night Wars shows, but I was trying to prepare some things this morning, and of course I was out in my yard. I got another tree problem. Listen to this. What are the odds of this happening? This story that I'm fixing to relay to you people, or delay to you people, as Reggie B. Fine would say. What are the odds that this would happen? I've talked about, I had a tree story before several months ago, talked about my tree man, Ace Tree Man Corky. Anytime I got a problem with the trees, you call Corky. He'll climb those things 80 feet up in these giant maples. He'll cut them up. He'll chop them up. He'll haul them off, right? Well, over the past week, the weather's been so good. I've been out in the yard. I've been weed whacking the fence rows. I've been trimming the dead branches off the trees. We talked about the most exercise I've gotten all year. It's been wonderful. Wonderful, beautiful weather. Excellent to get out and commune with nature, with the squirrels and the opossums and things. And I went back to the back property line. That's usually where these troubles begin. And I see, well, goddamn, another one of those pesky sassafras trees has broken off at some point. You can't see this from the house, and I hadn't been back there in a couple weeks. But it's laying there on the ground. It's about 40 feet long, but it's on my property. It's not on the fence. It's not hurting anybody else. But I say, I got a few other things that old Corky needs to do around here. And also we got to talk about my big tree in the front. I'm going to call Corky. So I call Corky, and he comes out, takes care of the one I had down, took out another little dead one, and a couple of these, the evergreens had got the rot, various cleanup. But we look at the big tree, right? We've looked at it again we looked at it the first time a year ago. One of my big maples, almost 100 feet tall. It's a very old tree, got the root rot, got the fungus, the pestilence, if you will. And we started treating it, but we caught it too late. We couldn't save it, so this thing is graveyard dead, right? But it's a big tree, and it's in a strange location. It's in between two giant trees that are good, that we don't want to fuck with. And on the other side, there's power lines, which we definitely don't want to fuck with. And the only clear path would take it down mostly in my yard, but also across the fence into the neighboring property, which seemed to be the best way to do it because it's a wire farm fence. I put it up to begin with. I'll pay to have it taken out, right? Because they had talked about bringing a crane, but you couldn't get a crane in on my side. You'd have to go to the neighboring property, which might cause damage unless it was real dry. So we'd put this off. Well, finally, while he's out here, I say, I've been staring at this, Corky. What about this? What about... And he concurred with this. As a matter of fact, when I finished relaying this information to him, he said, what about, Corky, if you were to climb up about halfway in that tree right where the crook is? Because there's a branch, it forks. Unlike some people's family tree, this tree forks. And one big piece goes over like where it'd fall in my yard and not hurt anything, but the other big piece, that was hanging where it would go over the power lines and things, and that would be dangerous. And gravity would take this thing that way because there's no way it would fall the other way naturally. It's just absolutely impossible. I say, what about if you climb about halfway up and you get that rope through that crook of that thing, and then you anchor it to a couple of vehicles in a V shape out here on my property and over next door? And if you felled it in the right way and you had some tension on it, well, then it would come right down there, and the only thing it would squash is my fence, the wire fence. We can fix that. And he said, I think we'll do it that way. We don't need the crane. I said, when can you come out and do it? He said, Monday, I'm going to come out and do it. Okay. This was yesterday afternoon. He said these words at 1:30. We've been staring at this dead tree for better than a year, trying to figure out exactly the best way to do this. Guess when the better part of that dead tree came down was? And 9 hours later, 10:30 at night, Stacy takes Harley Quinn out in the yard to piss. It's pitch black outside. She's out back of the house, right? This is over on the other side. And she hears this horrible snap and this crash. And the dog barks, and she comes and wakes me up. Not the dog, Stacy. And something's fallen somewhere, right around the house. Well, because it sounded so loud, she thought it had to be just on the other side of the house. So we turn all the spotlights on, light up the place like a Roman candle. I get a flashlight. I'm out there in flip-flops and shorts at 10:30 at night and pitch black, wandering around the yard, around the house, trying to find a break in one of these big trees around the house, right? And I run not dead into, but saw that suddenly 3 sets of eyes I got caught them in the flashlight, green eyes peering at me. It was a reflection with the deer caught in the flashlight, not the headlights, but the deer were hanging out in the backyard, and I came up face to face with it. Scared me to death. All right, I'm going to go the other way. I go all around the house. I can't see shit, right? So I think, well, you've hallucinated this, and there was consternation over that. I know I heard it. Well, it must have been in the yard next door. Whatever. The flashlight nor the spotlights go far enough to see that this morning when I got up and looked out the window, basically, the big part that would just fall gently into, well, not gently, but would fall safely into my yard and not land on anything, that's still there. But the part that we said would have to be anchored, that was dangerously close to the lines, that would never, following gravity, fall the way we wanted unless we did some tricks to it, just cracked off and dropped right across the fence exactly where we wanted it. It even fell halfway. There's a good tree in the middle, and part of it fell on one side of that good tree, and part of it fell on the other side and squished the fence. Just a little wire and a chainsaw, and then we get the rest of it down. What are the chances that the guy that's going to cut the tree must have heard us? Literally, the plan is adopted, and the guy promises the day and time upon which he's going to cut this tree down, and 8 hours later, it just says, fuck it. It took the easy way out. I want to thank that tree. Saved me a lot of money. That's probably $1,000 off the bill now for half of it coming down. Anyway.
You bring up deer. The other day I was driving around maybe 9 o'clock at night, but it's pretty dark around here because everything around here is 2-lane and not a lot of lights. You have to know your way around to get around here. Really dark, and I drive fast with the music blasting and the windows open. And fortunately,
you're still living the fucking Fast Times at Ridgemont High life, aren't you? Just fucking running around with loud music and your windows down with them sunglasses.
Depends which character in Fast Times you're referring to. But anyway, driving fast on the road at night, it's dark. Fortunately, I had enough time.
Radio playing that forgotten song.
I love Golden Era.
Brenda Lee's coming on strong. All right, I'm sorry. I'm interrupting your story. You listen to my tree, I'll listen to your fucking car.
Twilight Zone, almost as good as Radar Love. But anyway, luckily I had enough time, 2 deer in the middle of the road.
Oh.
The middle. I mean, I don't know if they were kissing or what the fuck they were doing. But they're just in the middle of the road, and, my heart just jumped quickly. One of them quickly ran to the right, got out of the way. The other one, I swear, maybe 4 inches away from the car on the left side, on the driver's side, as I passed by. Nothing I could have done because they were just complete darkness, and all of a sudden, like you said, the eyes reflected off the light, and then I saw the bodies. But my heart was jumping for like the next 10 minutes. I just kept saying, holy shit, because it almost happened. And that's really scary. I was once in a minivan with Georgianne Macropolis and a bunch of people coming back from a wrestling show in Pennsylvania, where at like 1 a.m,
which is probably another story entirely.
Yeah, well, at 1 a.m, she hit a deer and it destroyed the minivan.
What about the deer?
The deer had to have died, but the deer just got knocked off the side of the road and they couldn't find the deer when they finally came for the car. And then she had to rent a Lincoln Continental. And we had to stuff ourselves in there to drive back to New York.
Well, anyway. All right, enough of our wildlife stories. Speaking of the wildlife, I'm not living it right now. And the reason for that is because the Cornette's Collectibles store at jimcornette.com remains closed. Not for any criminal indictments, but because I'm taking a break. We are restocking and refreshing. The holiday sales season begins Thursday, October the 1st, when the store will reopen at jimcornette.com. Some old favorites and returning favorites, as well as a few new items. If you have ordered from me anything from anywhere in the past, it has already been shipped. And that's such a good feeling to be able to say that. Now I'm not guaranteeing you've got it yet. And some of the international stuff, as we said, it's a crapshoot. Folks, and international orders are down because I think people are realizing that they got to wait so long, and maybe it might get better and it might not. I don't know with what's going on around here these days. But we're upfront and honest. It may take, sometimes they say 2 weeks. Sometimes they say 4 months. It just depends. But anyway, everything is shipped that's been ordered, and the store opens again on October the 1st. I will not mention any items so as not to cause a panic. Just anticipate goodness this holiday season at jimcornette.com.
Goodness. I hear you say that, and I hear Dusty Rhodes' voice.
Goodness gracious. That would be great to hear Dusty Rhodes do Tennessee Ernie Ford. Goodness gracious, it's pea-picking good. By the way, you hear that?
I hear that. What is that?
You hear that?
You having a beer?
No, there's again, I mentioned last week on the program, one of the great Christmas gifts, birthday gifts that I got from the Cult of Cornette Facebook group was the canned Sprite, which is now in short supply again here in the Louisville metropolitan area. And of course, I guess that may not be Louisville's number one problem is the shortage of canned Sprite, but I got the 2-liter and over ice here today, baby. So anything could happen. Speaking of Louisville's problems, should we go ahead and get this out of the way? Because a bunch of people have tweeted and emailed and asked, I hope everybody's okay here in Louisville after the Breonna Taylor decision. You're already taking us off of YouTube, eh?
Well, a preemptive
strike.
We'll see what happens.
Well, first of all, yes, we're fine and in no problem because nobody's protesting where I live because the only people to protest to would be me and Stacy and the squirrels, and we're already on their side. So we're fine, but here's the basic bottom line of the bullshit. I'm not going to take too long with this. This is nothing I was going to make notes on because there's so many things that I wanted to say, and then I was out in the yard with a tree, and then I realized, why write this down? Because if I can't talk anybody else into it at this point, or if anybody already isn't convinced at this point, what the fuck, then it ain't going to happen. The Breonna Taylor decision was they indicted one of the police officers for wanton endangerment. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because he is one of the stooges that was outside that when the shooting started, just fired wildly through not only the sliding door on the patio of the apartment in question, but also 3 or 4 times into the people's apartment next door that were just asleep in bed. And they had all of a sudden cops shooting their apartment up. So he got indicted for that. The other 2 that actually shot through the door apparently and killed Breonna Taylor, justifiable return of fire based on the fact that Breonna Taylor's boyfriend shot once at the people literally battering his door down, and then they shot back 26 times or whatever the fuck it was, all in total. The police claim, and there was one witness, everybody else for 6 months around here has been saying, we didn't hear shit. But suddenly that somehow they came up with one witness who said the police said it was the police before they started breaking the door down when they were just beating on it. But besides the fact that they admitted they had a no-knock warrant, so they're serving a no-knock warrant by announcing and knocking. That's their story. So they also have the recording of her boyfriend after the people have been knocking down the door and he shot at them and they shot back all those times and killed her. He's hiding in the back of the apartment somewhere on 911, calling the cops on who he obviously, from the tone and recording of the conversation, didn't realize were the cops. Would this be the first time in the history of ever that anybody called the cops knowingly on the cops? Would that not be a stupid thing to do? Therefore, whether they announced or whatever, he thought he was calling the cops on the people that just shot his fucking house up, which were the cops. But the reason why the cops that shot his house up got off is because he shot at them when they were breaking his door down. And he shot at them once and hit one of the cops in the leg. Yeah, I'm giggling about it. And they fired by the total of them. 3 cops fired 20-something times. One of the cops, they said he fired 10 times in total. His testimony was he fired 6 shots and then 4 more after he fell down. So anyway, that's it. And there's also some disagreement between the Kentucky Attorney General's investigation and the FBI. They weren't exactly sure which one of the cops' bullets actually fired the shot that killed her, which you would think ballistics would somehow narrow down, but since people are arguing about it, But that's that after all that time. So thank y'all for coming. Had a real good time. Come back next time. We'll have a fine show for you again. And not that this should be belittled, and I don't want to take up a bunch more time, but this is not even the biggest problem. The biggest problem is what is going to keep this being a problem and is not going to solve this problem at all is that the Republicans are now trying to hijack the Supreme Court. And after we said it last week, I wanted to say something, but I probably wouldn't want to do the rest of the program after saying it, but Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dying wish dictated to her, what was her niece or family member, granddaughter, whatever, is don't let this bastard do this to the Supreme Court, basically. And this is that you want, if anybody wants, Breonna Taylor or any of this stuff to stop happening, it's not going to. And because it's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court, and guess whose side they're going to be on? Wouldn't you know who won the pony? And this is the bigger story, is this is what the Republicans have been trying to do for years and years. There have been books written about it. Decades. They've been trying to fuck up the Supreme Court and infest it with these fucking cretinous, ass backwards, conservative dipshits that will take everybody's rights away unless you were once a cast member of Leave It to Fucking Beaver. They've wanted to do that. That's why the Republicans in Congress have tolerated and enabled and looked the other way and held their noses for this fucking criminal cretinous buffoon in the White House because they're using him. They have been using him. They said, okay, the fucking suckers and the rubes are going to support this guy. This is our fucking chance. We'll get to court. We'll get the tax breaks. We'll get everything the way we fucking want it. And maybe we can keep him under control so he doesn't fuck anything up too bad. Well, imagine that. Most of the things he's fucked up, they don't care that gets fucked up. The climate and the regulations and the fucking anything to help people. They didn't count on him when it killed 200,000 people, but that, it's still not enough to get them to fucking break off. So, or collude with Russia. They were willing to put up with that. But that's what they've been wanting to do all along. Stack the Supreme Court, and especially with not only unqualified people, but unqualified conservative people and young, inexperienced, young, inexperienced, unqualified dipshits that will be here for 40 or 50 years. And when hopefully society has moved on from Republicans and conservatives and their mental fucking delusions, we'll still have a Supreme Court under current rules that's voting like it's 1956. This is what they wanted. This is why they fucking tolerated this guy. And they're trying to steal it like they stole the last one. 9 months before the election, vacancy to be filled. Obama put a good candidate up. They wouldn't hear it because, let the next president pick it. Now it's 6 weeks. We're going to run this through. They're not only shameless and blatant, but they can't even make it look good. Because Mitch McConnell is a bigger problem to this country than fucking President Pig shit. Because he knows what he's doing and he's evil. He's not just a fucking buffoon, incompetent, criminal real estate fraud that's been propped up by his family his whole life. He's an accomplished individual evil criminal. And he knows how this shit works. That's why he's there, and that's why he gets shit done. So we're putting the next, with all the judges they've appointed already, we've put the next 20 or 30 years in some cases or more of this country in this fucking dipshit's hands, who has immediately turned it over to the goddamn Republicans so long after that fucking lunatic asylum of a party has fucking gone away that tried to put Sarah Palin in the White House and did put Donald Trump in the White House. We'll still be suffering the effects of their incompetence and their fucking screwed up way of thinking by the decisions that are being handed down in these courts. So one more time, if you haven't already figured out they're hotshotting this thing and the world is on the line in this election, I just want to go briefly down the list of people who should never vote for Donald fucking Trump. Because we know that the fucking hillbillies and the rubes and the suckers and the morons are right there and you can't shake them. And the reason why they follow the idiot fucking Republican lunatics in Congress that have their own agenda is not because they want the judges and they want the fucking tax breaks for the billionaires and they want the power, but because they want people to stop having abortions and be able to keep their guns. Because these fucking mentally deficient fucking dwarves are so goddamn fucked up in the head and backwards in their thinking that they want to take away people's right to decide whether they have a family or not. But once they've got that family, they want to make sure that they can go to school and get mowed down by automatic weapons. More guns, less abortions. That's what they want. If you've got a fictitious proposed life, they want to save it. If you've got an established current life, they don't give a fuck. So let's think about this. Who are you going to vote for? If you want to vote Republican, you can't be black, because we know how that goes. If you're black and you don't want to be shot by the police, don't vote for Republicans, because they're not going to do a goddamn thing about it. If you're a woman and you want to decide whether you have kids or not, and you can do that with a safe, legal, medical procedure, then you shouldn't vote for Republicans, because they will tell you can't do that because it will make an invisible, fictitious supreme being upset. Also, if you're a woman, pretty much any protections you've got are going to be gone or under attack. If you want to be equal in any type of professional or medical or fucking social situation. So women should, except for the infiltrators in the women's midst, a lot of these fucking Christian lunatics will come out and say, oh yes, we're supposed to be subservient to the men because God made it that way. See, you women, you've got fucking traitors in your ranks. That fucking Republican or the religious mental illness will cause them to go Republican every time. So talk to your sisters about the fact that they continually shoot you people in the foot with the anti-abortion rights and the anti-fucking female rights and the anti-gay rights, because half the people that are gay are women. So they're also, if you're a gay woman, well, they just as soon you go fucking fuck off. If you're a gay child, here's what they want to do. They want to send you to goddamn, remember Pence was the big one on this, the conversion therapy, the pray the gay away. They were going to send children, they do send children, to camps, kids that already don't really understand exactly what they're thinking about or what's going on with them, and they're trying to figure it out. And they tell them that an invisible supreme being should tell them how to act and live, and they're fucking up. So they're creating a future group of serial killers and maladjusted fucking citizens with problems on purpose, just to do it, just to fuck with people. So if you're gay in any way, shape, or form, you won't be able to get married. You won't be able to get protections where, the civil rights of partners. When one dies, the other gets the inheritance. That'll all be out the window. So if you're gay, they just as soon y'all burst into flames and fucking just go away. So let's see, black people. But we forgot about the Mexicans. You already know what he thinks of you. Rapists and criminals. He wanted to build a wall to keep y'all out, like you'd be clawing with your bloody fingernails to get over his fucking wall so you could jump into the goddamn country that has twice as many fucking pandemic cases as anybody else in the goddamn world. Oh, it's a fucking paradise here, with the cities on fire and the wildfires out west and the floods in the fucking Gulf Coast and the fucking civil unrest and the police mowing people down in the streets. Come on, mate. The Mexicans are climbing the other way across the wall right now. So let's see. No Mexicans, no black people, no women, no gay people. Anybody that wants to decide whether or not they have kids, which that's pretty much mostly heterosexual people, although there are exceptions. You're in that. The guys are in that too, because the guys are going to have to pay for in a large cases, for some of these unwanted children. So you got that going for you. Let's say anybody that just has any fucking pride in their country or shame at how they're being represented and how we're the laughing stock of the world. The Patriots. Oh, I forgot the Patriots are one that like this dipshit. So, okay, all the people who recognize that he's turned this country into a shithole for the past 4 years and it used to be great. Those kind of patriots. They ain't going to vote Republicans. Because also you can't vote for a Republican if you're a patriot, because they've stabbed the goddamn Constitution in the back anytime they wanted to over the course of this whole fucking fiasco. Who else? People that want to breathe. People that want to breathe. Or actually just live, because they're going to get rid of your health care, whether you're black, brown, green, purple, polka dotted. Fuck Obamacare, the pre-existing conditions. They're going to get rid of that so the insurance companies can charge you even more money or kick you off again entirely, and people go bankrupt in this country, or at least used to. Not as much anymore because they can't do that, but you still can go bankrupt in this country anyway, just over medical bills to begin with, even if you have what they call the Affordable Care Act. Much less what the Republicans call nothing. And also if you want to breathe, because the biggest problem that we all have, as anybody with half a lick of fucking brains that doesn't live in goddamn Hattiesburg, Mississippi might explain to you, or fucking Peoria, Illinois, or some goddamn redneck place out in Montana, who thinks that the big problems is the fucking socialism and the communists that are coming to take your jobs. The biggest problem we've got is we fucked the climate up and it's ahead of schedule. And the part of the country that isn't drowning is on fire. And these Republican fucking nitwits, because they are jealous of intelligent people with educations, like scientists and doctors, do nothing about the pandemic. They do nothing about climate change. They do nothing about climate change because it hurts the economy, hurts the coal miners. It hurts the fucking stocks of the energy companies that they're all propped up with. And they didn't do anything about the pandemic because Trump didn't want it to hurt the stock market, because that's his only reference to what the fucking economy is, which is not the same, because more than half the people in this country don't have anything in the stock market. So who did I leave out, Brian? Oh, and whether or not you have children, just if you don't want to get shot. In general, because the Republicans are never, by the police or anybody else, the Republicans are never going to do anything about guns. This stupid fucking country, these stupid fucking people in it with their goddamn Revolutionary War fantasies, and they grew up watching Westerns and playing video games, and now they think they're all going to be the hero, and all they do is fucking shoot each other in the fucking balls, and it wind up on the goddamn news. You fucking idiots. So they're not going to do anything about guns. We can be blessed with the Second Amendment for the rest of our fucking lives. Who else did I miss, Brian? Men, women, children, black, brown, gay, straight. Why would anybody who's not a completely mentally ill, delusional moron, bereft of the cognitive ability to recognize light from darkness, vote for a fucking Republican?
I don't know who else you missed. I will say one thing that has bothered me is that the way it's being portrayed by Donald Trump and his administration and many members of the Republican Party, that if Joe Biden wins, we will have riots in the streets and unruliness and all of these things. This is all Donald Trump's America right now. A pandemic that's out of control that he lied to the American people about. Wildfires destroying the West Coast while he says that it'll get cooler, or you should sweep the floors of the forests. Riots in all these cities, and he tries to say they're only Democratic cities. No, they're the cities where there actually is a population is where these things keep happening.
Yeah, they don't have too many riots in the middle of the Great Plains.
Right. And that's the one thing that bothers me. The idea that, oh, Joe Biden wins, all these things will happen. The stock market will crash.
All the things that are already happening are going to happen.
Everything that's already happening will happen if Joe Biden wins, which is just ludicrous.
Anyway, bring us back to YouTube.
Turns out I was right with my preemptive.
Yeah.
Turns out I was right.
I've got a headache, and I'll tell you what, after that, because it's just thinking of these people. But I've got a kind of it's called an off-label type of remedy for a headache from one of the listeners, one of the Cult of Cornette members, from Andre, as a matter of fact. We have quoted him in the past. Not the Giant. Not the Giant.
I do an impression of Andre doing his yelp in the middle of a match. You want to hear it?
You might do it, but don't.
You don't want to hear it?
That was pretty plain, wasn't it?
Okay. All right.
All right. Go ahead and do it.
That's late stage. That's late stage Andre the Giant doing anything in the ring.
That's late. What that is late stage brain disease on your.
Oh, come on.
Speaking of which, Andre writes, "Hey, boss.
Do you have a wine cellar?"
Yeah. What would you have brought me if I'd asked for a Bloody Mary? Thank you, Bobby the Brain. I get headaches frequently, says Andre. Sometimes they are really bad. And sometimes I have to quit working midday and just lay down. I try to work through it, but I start feeling nauseous. About 6 months ago, I rubbed Cryofreeze on my temples and massaged my temples with the applicator ball for a couple of minutes. And after about 15 minutes of resting, the pain was gone. I don't know what made me try it, but I'm now using Cryofreeze to treat my headaches, and it works really well. I'm just passing along this off-label use because it has helped me immensely, and I wonder if it could help anyone else. Our Cult of Cornette members are quite creative, are they not? I think they are.
I think they are.
I think they are, and that also shows you, folks, the quality of the products that we recommend here on the program. If you're one of our sick and shut-in members, you're in the house, you're feeling puny, you've got aches and pains from arthritis, backaches, muscle soreness, joint pain, you want to try a drug-free solution, we have talked about it so many times. The listeners have sent in their various experiences with knees and backs and hips and now heads. It'll help you from your nose to your toes, ladies and gentlemen. Omax Cryofreeze, the all-natural topical pain reliever that ices out the pain with a 1-2 punch of super cold menthol and hemp CBD. You roll it onto wherever it hurts, and it provides a powerhouse dose of relief that lasts up to 8 hours. It doesn't stink. It's not greasy. We've had so much great feedback on it, and right now, a 1-month supply of Omax Cryofreeze, you can get 20% off and free shipping or any product site-wide when you go to omaxhealth.com. That's O-M-A-X health.com and enter the code JCE because, after all, we know people here at the program and they will fix you up. Basically, this is good for stuff or good for people in the NFL or the NBA or people just like you that are on the couch and sore because we ain't as young as we used to be. So if you've got pain that won't go away, you qualify for the Omax Cryofreeze. Roll it over where it hurts. Ice out the pain. We haven't tried it on hemorrhoids yet, folks, but it works on everything else. I don't know if I'd recommend what I just said to be tried at home. Go to omaxhealth.com. Enter the code JCE, get 20% off Cryofreeze and any product site-wide. omaxhealth.com.
I just want to stress real quick that Omax is a fantastic product. Do not use it on hemorrhoids.
Are you stressing that? Is that a no-no that we've established?
I want to make sure we establish right here.
I wouldn't.
Don't use it on the hemorrhoids.
I wasn't sure whether as I said it, I thought, well, maybe I'm not going to recommend that, but I didn't know whether there'd been any feedback on it or not.
I don't know if there's been feedback. I'm specifically saying I do not want feedback on this. Do not try this at home.
You'd have think if somebody had tried it, we'd have heard about that.
Yes,
we'd probably heard them actually. At the time they did it, depending on which side of the country they were on. Am I hearing the opening strains of a COVID outbreak in wrestling. We've poor Lance Archer. I hope he's okay. And whoever. Oh, God damn it! Maybe this is call him now to tell me how his doctor was. It's another god. I bet this is a political call. I'm already voting for her. There you go, Amy McGrath. She's getting out the fucking robocalls. Anyway, Lance Archer has gone down to COVID. He's positive, as the Sheik would say. That's not good, Sheik. Is there somebody else that we have heard here recently? I have not gotten the official list.
I haven't seen an official list, although on both shows last night, NXT and AEW, there were people noticeably absent, and apparently part of the reason for that and some of the makeshift matches on some of these shows may have been I don't know if we want to declare it a COVID outbreak, but at least several people have come down with COVID. On AEW, I have not seen this guy yet. I've heard people say he's really good. There's a guy named Ben Carter who apparently there was an AEW Dynamite after the NBA game late at night the night before on Tuesday that I didn't watch, and I'm sure you didn't watch, but
I've missed it.
A lot of people raved about him, and then the next day he announced he had COVID.
Oh.
So, I think Dave Meltzer is actually confirming from what I see right here that the reporting is true. There is a little bit of a COVID outbreak with at least AEW, but I heard it was NXT as well.
Well, what do we know about NXT? Now, we're not trying to out anyone.
What was that tag team match last night? What was the tag team match last night?
Oh, good Lord. Where's my notes?
Roddy Strong and
Roderick and one of the guys against the other fucking guy. And so they're partners, are they? But no. Because,
was Bobby Fish on the show?
No, Bobby Fish was not on the show. We didn't see him anywhere. Well, so you're trying to say something without saying it now. You're trying to insinuate. Inseminate. Insinuate.
Potentially there's a reason why certain people who were just not on the show for no reason presented to the viewer may have not been there, and it may have been COVID in their lungs.
I'm becoming infected with. It was Roderick Strong and Danny Burch, and we'll go over this later again for the folks so you don't have to take notes, against Raul Mendoza and Fabian Eichner. And,
where's Bartholomew?
Bartholomew J. Frog?
Well, who's Fabian Eichner's partner?
Oh, Marcel Marceau.
That's right. I forget who's.
Yeah.
There's a Bartholomew somewhere, isn't there? Am I wrong?
Well, no.
Is there
possibly in middle-aged fiction? And the great Bartholomew. I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't have written this match down on purpose, and when they explained it, they didn't understand it either. All right, well, we'll jump ahead to that later on. But we wish everybody well, because these shows are bad enough. We don't need to change the existing plans and have people out of action.
I hate to say it, but this has been something I've feared would happen for a while, because not only do they have these wrestlers working together in the ring with the referee, no one's wearing masks. They now let some people back in the audience at AEW. I understand they're tested and they wear masks and they're in seating pods. But now you have wrestlers also working off-brand shows. There are random independents popping up.
What?
Yeah, there are independents popping up, doing shows again. Some of them have no fans.
But wait a minute. None of the NXT guys would be working, but the AEW guys are working other shows?
Yes. Some of them, not everybody, but some guys.
Well, but anybody that's on. I
wouldn't allow it.
Would anybody trust any of these outlaw indie promoters to run a severe testing program before they run some fucking outlaw show in front of 500 people? If I was AEW or on national television, I would not be allowing the guys to go out and do that stuff and then come back and work with the guys that I know aren't doing that. I'm pretty sure Jericho's probably not. Well, Jesus Christ, Jericho ain't gonna go work an independent show. No, he's gonna do an indie concert.
Jericho's like a few weeks away from announcing the world is flat.
But then we can tell him to go make sure and see if he sails off the edge.
No, but I think that, and by the way, I just want to say, if I was Tony Khan, if I was running AEW, I would put my foot down about that immediately. I mean, this is a serious thing to go out of state and work a wrestling show, whether there are fans there or not, whether there are fans socially distanced or not. You're working with another wrestler. Now you have to rely on what they've been doing for the past several weeks. It's insane to do that and then bring it back to Daly's place for the TV taping.
Well, that's the whole reason for testing to begin with is so okay, this guy's clean. He works for me, and then he fucking goes back home, and then he comes back and we test he's clean and he works for me. If he's going out to fucking Poughkeepsie for a fucking outlaw show, who knows what the fuck is going on? Ay, ay, ay. You know what they need, Brian? They need to be up on their athletic greens. A better immune system. A complete idiot that actually was had a Trump hat on. I saw quoted as saying, well, I saw that all you got to do to beat the COVID is just take some vitamin D, like sunlight, milk, right? No, it's more complicated than that. Your immune system is a very complicated thing, Brian Last. Mine is. I don't know about yours. And it needs wholesome ingredients, fruits and vegetables and botanicals, all mixed up with vitamins and minerals. It's not Vitamita Vegemin, folks. It is Athletic Greens. And it keeps you regular, it keeps you interesting, and it keeps your gut clean and healthy. You address the 4 pillars of health: energy, recovery, gut health, and immune support. And immune support is what we need these days. All the immunity we can get. Well, you don't have to make a mess juicing. You don't have to go out in public and buy the ingredients. They send you the Athletic Greens. You add it to the water. You shake it up in the shaker they send you, and you drink it. No mess, no cleanup, no trip to the grocery store. Brian is notoriously sloppy on his juicing cleanup.
Anybody would be.
Well, you're, especially from what I hear, worse than most. But this solves that problem. So it combines all the essential nutrients to help support the heart, the immune system, and the respiratory system, and especially the vitamins that you need, that you get particularly in the winter months, vitamin D3 and K2, because we know we get vitamin D from the sun, and that is not going to happen in the wintertime. So anyway, all this stuff, boom, everything. Right now, the Athletic Greens and a year's supply of vitamin D3, K2, all by going to athleticgreens.com/JCE. athleticgreens.com/JCE. You will get not only the Athletic Greens with your first purchase, but also the free D3K2 Wellness Bundle. That's not stuff you can just pick up in a grocery store, folks. This is special good shit. A 1-year supply of vitamin D is an added value when you try their delicious and comprehensive daily all-in-one drink, athleticgreens.com/JCE. That's what I got to say about that.
That's right, Athletic Greens. I got my D3 dropper right here on my desk, and I'll be using it shortly.
You'll be using it, and I'm glad you finally clarified the way that dropper is supposed to be used. You had the south end instead of the north end on that. It was not supposed to be used in that manner as you first did for the first week or so. At least you found out in time. Anyway, speaking of time, real quickly, this past week on the drive-thru, we watched and reviewed the Ring of Honor television program, their return to action, and the opening of the Pure Wrestling Tournament. And we raved over it because it was great, and they did a wonderful job, and it was what we were promised with AEW, the sports-based presentation with the analytics and statistics. And so since everybody seemed to enjoy that, we're going to do that again this coming week on the drive-thru, which will be out on Tuesday, October 5th. Is that correct? No, Tuesday, October 6th.
That's not correct either.
What? What day is it?
Well, today's the 24th.
What day will it be? So it will
25th.
be Tuesday, October. No, I'm skipping a week. It'll be out Tuesday, October. No. Tuesday, what the fuck day will it be out? Tuesday, September 29th.
That sounds more likely.
It's going to come out on Tuesday. I skipped a week. I was adding 2 weeks of trying to. Something like that. You bastard. You could edit that out and make me not sound so stupid, but you won't. I know.
But you handled it so well. It was the comeback.
Yeah. Anyway, well, then you tell them what day the drive-thru is going to be out. It's your goddamn show, too, here.
From what I understand, based on the calendar, Tuesday, September 29th, the next episode of the drive-thru comes out. Right after Yom Kippur.
All right. And we're going to watch Ring of Honor again the second week of the festivities for the Pure Tournament. And if you can't get enough of us between this show and that show, then they can still get on YouTube or go to Patreon and hear us as every waking minute if they need to, right?
Patreon.com/Cornette. You can't hear me just yet, but soon you will be able to. But you get access to the archives of the drive-thru and the experience from the beginning at the end of 2013. Right now we have episodes up till the summer of 2015 with another batch of episodes going up each and every Sunday night. Patreon.com/Cornette. And of course, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel, tinyurl.com/official Corny YouTube, or just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. Full episodes, clips of episodes, omnibus collections, as well as the amazing Travis Heckel artwork. Check it out today and subscribe. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. And on the topic of omnibus collections, I was just telling Travis the other day, at some point I need to sit down and compile a Jim Cornette Talks About Food omnibus.
Ooh, that would be good.
We've had some requests for it, and I have to figure out where all the clips are, but at some point, maybe at the end of the year, we'll try to release a Jim Cornette Talks About Food, or I guess the subtitle will be Jim Cornette Argues with Brian About Food.
Well, no, there's
omnibus.
Really no argument. There's no argument because I'm right and you're wrong. And I think that would be good to show people just how warped your thinking is in some cases in regards to what you consume and put in your body, young man.
And by the way, for the record, I just want to say, because the pizza debate started up again recently, to anyone who thinks I don't like meat on my pizza because I keep kosher, that's not it. I don't keep kosher. I just don't like meat on my pizza.
No, you're just weird.
No, I just like good pizza. You're just
weird.
I just like good pizza. When you have good pizza, you don't need to add a bunch of crap to it. It stands on its own.
But it's not good pizza without the crap on it.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
if it's done right.
No, it's not.
If it's done right. You don't know good pizza. You're from Louisville, Kentucky.
Listen here, Mr. Goddamn, what are you, one of the Sicilians?
Hey.
What are you a made man? You a member of the mob?
That's all just Hollywood. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you have no recollection of those events.
I don't resemble
Speaking of our friend Travis Bickle, he gets a lot of compliments on his artwork, and he's a real pip. He does a great job. Travis and his son Aiden, they are friends. As a matter of fact, Travis Bickle should be one of the staff of world-class artists over at Paint Your Life. Because think about it, a lot of his thumbnails that he does for our shows look just like a lot of these people that you see walking down the street. Just living pictures of them come to life. He could be a Paint Your Life artist. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking about getting a hold of the people at Paint Your Life and requesting a Travis Bickle special. I don't know whether we can get it done yet or not, folks, but they have great artists already at paintyourlife.com, and we've been telling you about it for weeks now. Christmas is coming up. Get started. You can get one of these things in about 3 weeks, but the time is now to start your plotting and planning. They can take any picture, any photograph that you have of any family member, any place, any pet, any special cherished item, and they can make a painting out of it. They can not only do that, but they can take different pictures of different people that may have never even met each other, have not coexisted as family members at the same time, and put them all in the same painting. So you've got multiple generations of the family or friends that have been separated or whatever the case. It's your imagination, folks. You're only limited by your imagination. And also by the fact that you've got to go to paintyourlife.com to get this done. That's the only limitation. But they do a great job. You work with a team of world-class artists on all the details. They let you order the custom-made, hand-painted portrait, which is guaranteed. Your money back if you don't love the final product. And right now, you can get a special deal. As a limited time offer, 20% off the painting, 20% off and free shipping. To get the offer, you've got to text the word DRIVE, D-R-I-V-E, to 64,000. That's DRIVE to 64 with 3 zeros behind it. PaintYourLife.com, there is no risk. If you don't love the final painting, as we said, your money is refunded, guaranteed, and you get 20% off and free shipping by texting the word DRIVE to 64,000. Paint your life. Celebrate the moments that matter most. Brian, what moments matter most to you?
My last game of Little League.
What?
I played third base. I hit a home run. I caught the ball from the catcher, got 2 guys out stealing. It was the best game of Little League I ever had. And it was my final game. I went out on a high note.
Well, even if it hadn't been supposed to be your final game, you still should have made it your final game. Because how are you going to top that?
Maybe a painting of me with my sunglasses on, rounding the bases, my arms in the air.
Music up loud.
Well, they can't do that in a painting.
Oh.
And by the way, there's a growing movement. A lot of people think Travis is taking credit for the work of Aiden Heckel.
Really? We have never seen the actual artistic process. We've only seen the results and been delivered them. Do you think that Aiden is indeed the mastermind and the master artist behind this Travis Bickle empire?
I don't know. I can't say. I haven't seen any evidence either, but there is a growing movement that Aiden is the true genius behind the art that appears on the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Time will tell.
All right. Well, I guess we'll go to the Wednesday night wars. We were going to talk about NXT, weren't we?
We were. Is that what we're doing first? I assume so.
Well, yeah, because I figure it's like a Stewie Griffin compliment sandwich. We're going to start with something good. We're going to go to some shit in the middle, and then we're going to end up with some good stuff with the Road Warriors. But NXT troubles me because there's so much that I like and so much more I want to like or I wish I'd have liked if they'd only give me the chance. But I've got to admit, at first, the first things that I wrote on the pad were, seriously, they're opening with a women's battle royal in a ratings war. Because, of course, most time you don't want to see a men's battle royal, and in a women's battle royal is even worse, right? But then I realized later on in this program, Brian, they're not in a ratings war. They're playing a long game. They're smarter than the amateurs over at the the Tony Khan Amateur Hour. Because they're not letting the ratings hold their program hostage at NXT. They're still doing stuff. I'm still not saying have a fucking women's battle royal for fuck's sake, right? But they're doing stuff that furthers their program and gets their talent over instead of just hot-shotting everything they possibly can and dropping the cow every week like they do over on the other channel. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense. They certainly are not operating most weeks like they're in a ratings war. They're just putting on a puzzling television show.
Well, in some cases it's puzzling, but I'll get to the point where I think I see what they're trying to do in some cases. But anyway, so this whole thing, it's a women's battle royal. I don't know how many of them there were in it. Way too many for my taste. Because they B-rolled old Mrs. Grandma Same Face with the gray hair. Old Candice LeRae, who Nancy Kerrigan Tegan Knox with a lead pipe and then ran over her with an equipment case. Apparently the lead pipe to the knee was not sufficient. She ran over her with the equipment case. So this is the first thing we see on the program. The girls are doing backstage unseen phantom injury attacks now. So what does it mean when the guys do it? Nothing. Because it's all the time. But anyway,
she did a good job of selling, though. I thought Tegan Nox did a good job of selling.
She was selling like she's going to the electric chair. But what the... They open with a 20-minute women's segment every week, and every week they get beat. I'd change up my strategy a little bit if I was just worried completely about the ratings. But at the same time, opening the program with the girls in the back with lead pipes, where do you fucking go? Just give it a second. But anyway, I was ready to fast forward, and then I saw Rhea Ripley's entrance, and I said, all right, I'm going to fast forward to see if she's one of the last 3 or 4 when it gets good. If she is, I'll stick with it. So I fast forwarded to a point where Rhea Ripley and Raquel Gonzalez, the other big girl they're building to their confrontation, they got in the middle of the ring. They had a better 1-2 than anybody on the other channel, but they eliminated each other. So at that point, I didn't care at all. So I fucking fast forwarded to the finish where Grandma LeRae and green-haired Shotzi did some kind of contrived bullshit on the apron and the stairs where they both had gone over the top rope, but they landed on the apron. Then they were on the stairs like 2 feet off the ground. And then they did a dangerous bump and an unimpressive finish at the same time. When Candice LeRae monkey flipped Shotzi off the stairs and she took a flat back bump on the floor. So it was a dangerous bump, but it was an unimpressive finish because they were only 2 feet off the fucking ground as they were fighting. And yes, it was a floor, but you get where I'm coming from. The whole idea, they've got so cute with these eliminations, both feet have to touch the floor, that now they're literally fighting less than 24 inches off the ground, and that's supposed to be dramatic. It's just fucking hell. 20 minutes, the first 20 minutes of the show for all of that. I was not a fan. What'd you think?
It really wasn't good. There were a lot of women in there. I had no idea who they were. Sometimes they just say names and they assume you're supposed to know them. And I think, oh, I must have not seen this person on the show. And then I'm like, actually, I've watched this show every week for months. Not very good. Rhea Ripley's a star. She carries herself like a star. She seems to be a league above everyone else. Dakota Kai, once again, fantastic in there. It was kind of fun watching the Casey Cannizzaro spots where, you know, because she's a ninja warrior, they throw her out and she lands on her hands and she doesn't touch the floor. At one point, she jumped onto the barricade where the plexiglass barricades are, or barriers. And they must have thought it was about to fall over. They quickly moved the camera back to the ring because it looked like she was off balance. And then they went back to her, so I don't know what happened. But not very good. Candice LeRae doesn't impress me very much. There's nothing else I could say, but I just... The only thing worse than a battle royal is a battle royal with no audience, where you don't hear anyone oohing and ahhing for any eliminations. It was just... Well,
but now, wait a minute. There's going to be some oohing and ahhing here later on. And that's,
but there wasn't here.
But it's only in certain spots. Is the people just appear or you hear them? They don't appear. You never see them, but you hear them. But we don't even have now. It's been a couple weeks. We don't even have the people beating on the plexiglass now. What the fuck happened there?
Well, again, remember, and we don't know.
I guess because they have an outbreak.
That's what I was going to say. As of recording time, we don't know who's affected, who is infected, who isn't
infected.
But if there is a COVID outbreak there, that may be a reason why there was absolutely no one banging on the glass or doing anything. No one breathing at a ringside.
Well, we hope that you're not affected. But anyway, after this thing, we go to an interview with Damien Priest about Johnny Same Face. And he, again, really good and natural, deep voice. And I've had somebody write me, say this guy has been around for, I guess he was Punishment Martinez in Ring of Honor a few years back. And again, I've heard that name, but that's not when I was not watching Ring of Honor. But he, at one point when he first started training, I guess, weighed like 300 and something pounds. So he's really transformed his body, but he's been doing, you can tell because he's a grown adult and acts like one instead of a bad fucking high school acting class participant. Anyway, Then we went to William Regal in the back with some of the guys who I later found a guy with the fucking hat and the guy, the Sherlock Holmes gimmick, but was one of Fan Dancer. And they were making that screwy tag team match that we'll get to later on that nobody understood what the fuck. I guess they were probably literally making it up as they went. But anyway, here, the next match, I like several of these guys. Tommaso Champa may be overall, top to bottom, my favorite fucking wrestler because I can't find a goddamn thing he does wrong. They had the rematch with Champa and Jake Atlas because he's the one that Champa returned a few weeks ago and just demolished, and they carted him out and he turned him over, et cetera, et cetera. And Jake Atlas can work. He doesn't have a convincing promo or a very intimidating voice or demeanor or whatever, but he can work, and he did a good job here. But the reason I say I can't find anything Champa does wrong is because he doesn't ever have a facial expression or a reaction that he shouldn't have to me. He doesn't do things in his matches that he, as the person he is supposed to be, wouldn't do. He sells the guy at the guy's level, and this, he had fucking Atlas all over him several times, but he did it right because he had the guy on top of him, windmilling, fucking doing everything he could, fighting for his fucking life. And Champa was off balance. He was on defense, but he was never in danger. He was in danger of getting fucking punched in the head or kicked or whatever. He wasn't in danger of losing. They made it believable because, like I said, when the guy was all over him, he sold it right. Then he would, one move, he'd fucking clothesline the guy out of his boots and take over for a second. Then the guy would have a fucking flurry. And it was more Champa being portrayed as just not being able to get out from under this fucking guy that's goddamn flipped out here, but he's probably going to. And then finally, after Atlas got one big false finish and you could almost buy it, then Champa stopped him, did that DDT, a draping DDT, boom, refused the fucking pin, slapped him around, trash talked him, hit another finish, and fucking beat him 1, 2, 3 flat. Tommaso Champa knows how to be Tommaso Champa. And it's so refreshing. This was a great match top to bottom, not because of the fact that they went 20 minutes or did this complicated series of gymnastics, but because it was exactly what it should have been, and they performed it perfectly. Facials, body language, attitude. Boom. There you go. What'd you think?
Yeah, can't really add too much to that. I thought it was all right. I thought Jake Atlas did a good job. Tommaso Ciampa is great. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with him next. They're still teasing. I guess they teased the Ciampa O'Reilly confrontation last week, right?
Oh, well, yeah, and actually, you know, I would like to see that, and I'm also looking forward to seeing O'Reilly and Thatcher, as we'll get to here in a few minutes. What do you think about old Ridge Holland? The package, we just watched Ring of Honor, as we talked about, and the packages they did on each of the talents in their tournament matches, we said were very sports-based. Even if these guys didn't look intimidating, the packages made them intimidating because it incorporated their real sports background and their athletic achievements. And so it made these guys on Ring of Honor somewhat tougher or more legitimate than you would think they were. With this guy, he looks like a beast, but by the time he finished with the scripted verbiage that they gave him, even though they showed pictures of him playing rugby and shit, I felt like Ring of Honor would have done this so much better. Did you get the feeling they went in the opposite direction? It was more entertainment than something you'd see on the UFC, like Ring of Honors were. Or did you watch it?
I watched it. I mean, you know, someone may argue the other way and say that maybe Ring of Honor needs more costumes. Maybe Ring of Honor needs more people in flashy hallways doing poses. I mean, you go see it both ways.
All righty. The next match was the one we were talking about earlier that they made out of fucking paper clips and duct tape, apparently. Roderick Strong teaming with Danny Burch, who's an English fellow who normally teams with somebody else, whose name I can't recall at this time. And they faced Raul Mendoza from the Lucha group and Fabian Eichner from the German Imperium team, and the winning team then will have to get their regular partners in the future to wrestle each other. The announcers didn't even understand. And then the winner of that would get a tag title match at some time. The announcers didn't understand it. They made fun of Fan Dancer not explaining it right. And I didn't know what the fucking purpose of this was. But this was a stupid idea. Just have a single match amongst any of these fucking guys. If there was a flu problem, a COVID problem, why come up with something this complicated that even the people trying to explain it didn't understand? And Beth Phoenix, by the way, did a real good job on this program with a two-person booth. She didn't get crowded out so much. She really stood out more. But why do this? I don't know. Do you have any? What were they going for?
I have no idea.
All right, well, they did a couple minutes. I saw a backslap tag by Danny Burch to Roddy, and I kind of zoned out. They went through a break. When Burch was in with Eichner, if one guy hadn't been wearing white boots, they looked like the fucking bald-headed Kelly twins. You can't tell them apart. And then Burch beat Mendoza after another backslap tag. I wrote, fuck this whole match. As goofy as a pet coon. I don't know what to say about the thing, but less said the better, probably.
Yeah, there's nothing really to add. It was just a makeshift match. I couldn't really care too much about it.
By the
way, this show's been horrible so far. Let me just throw that in.
Well, no, except
to everyone who thinks that we only rip on AEW, this show is horrible so far.
Yeah, well, except for Champa. Yeah, I'll agree with you, except for Champa. And we must find diamonds in the cow pies. They went to the locker room with Austin Theory, and I'm thinking, this kid's about to get a promo. They're going to push this kid. I love this kid. And he was about to be good. He got one line out, and here came Johnny Sameface in and did the promo for him. Basically saying if he beats Priest or hurts Priest or does anything to Priest, then he'll take care of him in the future, blah, blah. Austin Theory didn't get to say anything. It was Johnny Sameface. So, bleh. But this match, I'm going to give you observations. I observed that in all Friends wrestling, Austin Theory would look like Hercules Hernandez. I can't believe this kid's only 22. I see when I'm watching him in the ring, I'm seeing the video that I saw of Lance Storm, the athletic ability, the effortless, just coordination and being in the right place in the ring all the time. I see that. His bumps and his reactions, his facials. This kid's he is way, way beyond his experience level. And the only thing in 10 years, he will be a superstar in some fashion in wrestling, either possibly as a babyface or a heel, because the only thing he needs facially, he just needs to get a little older. Because he's still so good looking. But my God, where the fuck he came from, they made him. They broke the mold. And Damien Priest can fucking work, which sometimes he doesn't get to show because he works with some of the other guys that have these either unorthodox styles or whatever, but he can work. They had a wrestling match. The first part of it is 2 segments, which I didn't mind in this case. I was enjoying every bit of it. I would have loved to have had these guys in OVW. They tremendous, both of them, grasp of what they're fucking doing. They did a great spot for the break where Priest went for a springboard thing and Theory knocked him over the top rope, foiling his move, and that was at least a decent cliffhanger break spot. instead of just the same bland shit everybody else does. Anyway, on the other side, I loved the thing where Austin Theory did the forward roll through the ropes from the apron and then jumped up and hit the leaping drop kick. It looked like grown men struggling to and doing cool moves instead of cooperating with each other and doing cool moves and being high school children. Loved the comeback facials on Damien Priest when he kind of hulked up and made his comeback aggression. He Falcon arrowed old Austin halfway across the ring. Then at one point, Austin Theory got a big power bomb move type of thing for a near fall. They went to the floor, and I was about to say it was a bit too long out on the floor for what they needed at that point. But Damien Priest, that he hit that spin, what they call it, a cyclone kick, a spinning kick. This is what Dino Douche on the other channel is trying to do, but he's too awkward to. This guy has the fucking cool kicks that don't look like a cow on ice. And then he hit the fucking razor's edge on Theory on the apron, which I never advocate. But in this case, it wasn't two stupid fucks doing a standing thing, Death Valley driver. He had him up, he was on the floor, and he dropped him safely as you can on that situation. And then get back in the ring, and Damien Priest hits his finish, 1, 2, 3. It was a great fucking match. Both these guys, Priest is going to be a big star. And he's already got the look. Theory's going to be a star because of his personality and his athleticism and his work, but he needs to find whatever look that's going to be when he becomes a star, because this ain't it yet. He's forming, but he's a puppy with big paws.
This was great. Best thing on the show by far.
Yes, this was the highlight, and everything else was second place or farther back. But then, of course, as Damien Priest is celebrating, here comes Johnny Sameface in, super kick out of nowhere, knocks him out. But it was short. We didn't have to look at him too long. Anyway, anything else on that particular match?
No, I thought it was great. And I was watching the way Austin Theory moved in the ring. And it is crazy when you think about his age, but he's a natural, and he's really good. Damien Priest is really good. Compared to a lot of the other people on the show, it stood out what the match looked like. Not necessarily how they worked and what the match was, but looking at them, you could close your eyes and squint maybe a little bit. And you could see these two guys in the ring in 1990. You could see these two guys in the ring a few years before that, a few years after that. They don't look like little guys. They don't look like people with no muscle tone. They look like classic professional wrestlers. The Lance Storm comparison is interesting because now that I think about it, Austin Theory has a very similar physique to young Lance Storm.
Yeah, and just his coordination in doing the flying shit, but not making it look like cheerleading. But anyway, he's a grown man. This what I was going to ask you was the weird video. Somebody's coming back. Who the fuck is it? I couldn't even understand half what they were saying because of the computer distortion of the voice and the security camera footage of this hooded person. Another hooded person is coming back after 5 years. Who's been gone for 5 years we'd give a shit about?
I don't know.
All right. Overdone a bit, possibly. The next match, we'll briefly touch on it. Ridge Holland against Antonio DeLuca. Poor Antonio had no business here. He just didn't stack up visually or at experience level. And I know they're going for a quick and decisive victory for Ridge Holland, but this was the closest they came to looking like AEW when they, Antonio needs some size and seasoning before he's on national television. Because Ridge Holland is obviously a great athlete and is a beast, but he's very green, and this was short and basic. And it needed to be, and you probably should have had a veteran in there to make Ridge look a little better instead of just him having to carry the whole ball because it was all him. Anyway, and I'm not saying that the veteran should have gotten offense. I'm saying you should have had a squash from a guy that was a little bit more experienced so that Ridge would have looked better while squashing him. The old line in the locker room, I don't know if I can figure out how to beat you without hurting myself. this is where I realize they're not hot-shotting here because it's important if they want to build this Ridge Holland. It's important for him to get wins. It's important for him to be dominant, get squashes. They'll do squash matches. They'll do wins. They'll do cold matches like this. They won't make them go 20 fucking minutes like the other guys, but they'll do these things to get talent over and for the long run of the business. And what's the next takeover going to be? And what's takeover is going to be in 6 months or whatever, instead of hot-shotting it. And, the other guys have to drop the cow every fucking week. If you don't know what I mean by drop the cow, go back to the 1975 Saturday Night Live box set. Oh my God, they've dropped the cow. The match and the sketch are over. But anyway, so Ridge beat him, and he should, but it was what it was. Pretty much what it was, wasn't it, Brian?
Nothing I could add.
Okay, then EO in the back here. This EO was speaking in Japanese and then English, but I understood the Japanese a little better than the English. Then here comes Mr. and Mrs. Sameface. They're yelling at EO. Then Priest comes in and punches Johnny Sameface. I could have done without this because now you've got Damien Priest that was just in a really good fucking piece of business, and now he's in contrived shit with the girls and the midgets. And it wasn't convincing, and it made him look bad because he's involved in this. And apparently they've got a mixed tag for next week. So I have to watch Io Shirai and Candice LeRae to get to see Damien Priest. Oh, woe is me. Okay, the main event was the Gauntlet match, and we said Priest and Austin Theory was the best thing on the show, and it was. But the parts of this, especially when they got it thinned out a little bit, was very good. Also, we can't say it was.
Yeah, let me just say that right here. That's exactly right. I hate the idea of the Gauntlet match. I hate another multiple man thing on the show. But the stuff with O'Reilly and Thatcher, and the stuff with O'Reilly and who am I forgetting now? That was at the end of the match.
What Cameron Grimes,
and Cameron Grimes,
Reed.
and Cameron Grimes. Man, let me tell you something. When I was fantasy booking New York Championship Wrestling, I wish I had Cameron Grimes. But that stuff was really good. But it was the first several minutes of it I didn't really care for.
Well, here's the thing is, I like the idea of a gauntlet match when you have two guys wrestle and then there's a finish. One guy wins and then the next opponent comes in and you do the eliminations that way. As a matter of fact, Rob Moore from down in Greenville, Texas, got me a cease and desist letter back in Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
I was there.
Coming up with the rules of that match, and some fucking tough guy. What are you, some kind of tough guy? A tough man contest fighter was like, because I named it King of the Mountain, and he got mad because he had the King of the Mountain. But that makes sense. This, where guys are added before there's a decision between the other two, it becomes another multiple man match that you can't you can't do your best in. These guys, once again, far and away the talent that was in this, especially once my friend Kushida was out of it, they did as good a job as you can have in a match like this, but it's still, a lot of it doesn't fucking make sense. When they start out, Kushida and Kyle, in a match like this also, the first two guys just killing time. Everybody knows that nothing's going to fucking happen, and it's just killing. It's like the first 5 minutes of the War Games. Anyway, when Bronson Reed came in, they did some nice big man spots and then went back into the three-way type of thing. But just the first half I wasn't a fan of, and even with the guys that can work, Kyle O'Reilly gets knocked out to the floor, and the referee leans out to see if he's okay. Through the ropes, the referee's still standing in the ring, and Velveteen Dream hits the ring, hits Kushida with a big finish, less than 10 feet behind the referee's back, and leaves in an empty building without fans screaming to cover up that. You see where I'm going with this, right? You can get away with it when there's fucking 5,000 people screaming, but and he just Dream VD is his abbreviation, by the way. Velveteen Dream rolls out, and Bronson Reed pins him, and that's where they piped in extra fake boos for Velveteen Dream. Did that really bother you there? It was obvious.
It was obvious. I can't say it bothered me. Again, this is the part of the match I didn't care much about.
Well, I'm just to up the goddamn level of booze, fake booze from people that aren't even there, from the background to goddamn like a cacophony, like somebody was starting a riot. Anyway, and then here comes poor old Timothy Thatcher and enters, and he gets up on the apron and somebody blasts him and knocks him back to the floor. We go to the break. Thanks for coming. That was the most inauspicious entrance to the ring since Matt Sydal 2 weeks ago in AEW. That part of the match up to then pretty much was just suck donkey cock. But they come back from the break, and here comes Cameron Grimes. And holy thank fucking goodness. He comes out, he jumps up, he does a crossbody off the top rope on the fucking guy, rolls up to his feet, takes his hat off, and hangs it on the fucking ring post. In one move. That was the best goddamn entrance of the night on either show. And then he lit the thing up. He had some life and some energy. And he's different. And it lit it up. It was, from this point on, it was watchable. It was better because it was still four guys doing things to each other at random instead of an actual match, because that's what it has to be. But it was four guys doing those things at a high level and fairly logically. And did you notice, by the way, this more than ever, if you put a mask on Timothy Thatcher, if he looked right now, if he looked the same way in 1974, you could tour him as Dory Funk Jr. doing some kind of fucking gimmick and people would buy it. He's a body double. Can you see it now in your mind's eye?
Not really. Not really.
What? I have never
Dory
seen
Funk Jr.?
Dory Funk Jr. and Timothy Thatcher, if they were both the same age in 1974 and you put a mask on both of them, they could body double. The way he doesn't wear knee pads, the way he moves, the long rangy fucking the way he puts the fucking holes on. He's the closest thing I've seen to any other fucking person in wrestling history move like Funk Jr. Anyway, Bronson Reed is a beast and should be a big star. Kyle O'Reilly hit a Bobby Eaton level knee drop off the top rope on Reed there and got the pin on him after they did that little exchange. And I would love to see O'Reilly and Thatcher in a single match. I think that would be a great thing. I wrote now, this is winning me over. At one point, Grimes clotheslined himself over the top rope. He was charging at Kyle O'Reilly, and I don't know what was going to go on there, but Cameron went with it. He went over the top rope. Kyle rolled up Thatcher 1, 2, 3. Then Cameron Grimes hit O'Reilly with a finish and thought he won, but O'Reilly got his foot to the rope, so he got some fucking heat on O'Reilly, and then more fake boos. Where do they think these people are? That we think the people are coming from? That we should suddenly hear this? They're not. There's not even any Thunderdome faces. So what's with just a little murmur throughout helps it from echoing and sounding like a goddamn broom closet, but don't fucking bring up fake boos from people we know are not there. Anyway, Kyle and Cameron Grimes had a nice exchange, and Kyle tapped him out with a fucking leg lock, and it was really good. The second segment, or the final segment, after it got thinned out a bit and got going.
I agree. It's really something when you see that clip on Ring of Honor last week of Kyle O'Reilly from years ago. You know, he still looks young, but when you see him there, it's like, wow, he really has come a long way.
Yeah. Well, that's because it was always so funny because he looked 12 when he was 20 in Ring of Honor. And that's, but you could always tell him and Cole both. That's why we kind of started protecting them and elevating them from the start, because they both had it, and in completely different ways. Cole's a classic worker and it was a classic baby face and can perform classically anyhow. And Kyle has an unorthodox physique and a completely different style, and nobody else but him does it, and it works for him, especially with that fucking face. But you could tell they had something, but they got to get older and just figure out what that is. That's what I'm saying with a guy like Theory. He'll be a big star looking differently, but you can tell he's got everything except just roughing up a little bit.
You know, the Ciampa segment was good. The Damien Priest match was great. The end of the Gauntlet match was good. We really liked Ring of Honor this week, and the one big difference, well, there's a lot of big differences, the presentation, everything else, but one of the big differences is Ring of Honor was only 1 hour. If that show was 2 hours, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much. And
well, but now wait, back up, because you got to qualify that. If the same stuff was on that show and it was 2 hours, no, it'd taken twice as long, and we wouldn't have. If there was more of that good of stuff, it wouldn't have been as bad. But 2 hour, this show, to the point I guess you were going to make, and I'll let you make it after I anticipate it. If this show had been an hour, it'd have been great with only the good stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. And NXT used to be 1 hour on the WWE Network. When it went to USA, it became a 2 hour show. I understand it's 2 hours. I understand why, because AEW is 2 hours. That's the only reason why. But it's much better as a 1 hour show.
But you know what? God damn it. There were times in OVW when I wished I had 2 hours. When we had so many guys and so much stuff going on, and the crowd would stay. The crowd was always hot because they knew the guys, they were into it. If you have and they have more talent, I'm puzzled at some of the decisions they make, but you can do a good 2 hour show by just doing more of the good stuff and less of the bad stuff. And, you know, so, because I'm just saying, I did some 2 hour specials in OVW where it was an entertaining 2 hours just because we did more of the good shit and less of the bad shit, and only had one 20 fucking something minute match, which was a main event involving two guys that could do it. And you let everybody else come out and do what they can do positively for as long as they can do it well for. And the show moves better. But just multi-man matches, lack of focus on who's the babyface, who's the heel, too much drama in between amongst bad actors. That, there's the same problem on every wrestling program. It just do more of the good stuff and less of the bad stuff is basically it. Anyway, I guarantee you one thing. If there's a way that I can figure out to fast forward all the girls' parts in the mixed tag match next week and just watch the guys so I can see Damien Priest kick the shit out of Johnny Sameface, I'm going to do it.
Well, fortunately, there is a way. It's called fast forward.
You want to bet on it?
Don't want to bet that you're going to skip the women's matches? I would not take that bet.
Not even my bookie would take that bet, folks, but they'll take everything else because winning season has returned at my bookie, and that means doubling your first deposit. Folks, the insane prop bets, the epic bonuses, the crazy cross-sport wagers, it's all there at my bookie. And winning season means watching live sports, betting live sports all season long, and then getting paid for doing it. The NFL has returned, action-packed Sundays, huge cash prizes, and right now, because our friends at MyBookie know and understand that me and Brian Last don't know how this shit works, and he'd probably bet the Mets just for the hell of it because he's beholden to them. But you guys who know how to do this,
it's true.
Go to mybookie.ag and use the promo code JCE and double your first deposit because new players get up to $1,000 in free play, which is designed to add more excitement to the sports you love and the games you bet. So bet with the best this NFL season for your chance to win big. Your winning season begins today only at MyBookie, mybookie.ag, promo code JCE, double your first deposit, and see whether they will bet on me skipping all the rest of the girls' matches for the rest of the year, except for Rhea Ripley.
And Dakota Kai.
No, just Rhea Ripley.
And Dakota Kai? No?
I would have said Rhea Ripley and Mercedes Martinez, but now they've put a fucking gimmick on her and put her over in the terrorist group, and I don't want to have to watch Raw. Boy, she had a cup of coffee in NXT now that I think about it, didn't she?
It was pretty quick.
Didn't take long at all. So we couldn't enjoy her a bit. Anyway.
Good cage match, though. We got at least a good cage match out of her.
No wonder they rushed that program. We were wondering why they start the program with a goddamn... Well, now we know. All right.
I guess, all things considered, if you're going to bring these people up to be in Retribution, they brought up Mia Yim and Mercedes Martinez, two of the more experienced women in the company. Right? I mean, they've been out there for a number of years. They're really talented. They're good.
Yeah, I'm not opposing them being brought up to anything that's better for them, but since they were just on TV last week on national television, why'd they have to change their fucking name? Anyway, I know a lot of people that should be changing their names that were responsible for the All Friends production on September 23rd on the other channel opposite to NXT. I said that NXT keeps trying to concede the war to AEW by giving them the first 20 minutes by doing a girls match. But AEW apparently decided to play their own game and tried to concede the first 20 minutes to NXT by doing absolutely one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. And that's saying something. Do you think Miro came to AEW for fucking $500 a shot?
Oh, no. I'm sure he's getting a very nice contract.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Then why fucking treat him like a fucking $500 a shot indie fucking guy on a debut? This guy's big fucking debut was 20 minutes of goddamn... He came out looking like a fucking beast, and by the time the match was over, he was on their level. They had all lowered him to their level. The match, for those of you who haven't watched yet, until we describe it so that you can see what was done wrong, was Kip Sabian and the newest Bulgarian brute in AEW, Miro, with their sidekick, Penelope Ford, against the fellas that unfortunately weren't allowed to call themselves what they wanted to call themselves. And they actually never were going to do that to begin with. But since they don't have a team name, I do have a couple of new ones.
No. We can't do this again. We can't.
I think we can. I think we can. Because I don't know whether Kip Sabian and Miro wrestled the Nobody Donnas or whether they were wrestling the Slovenly Bodies.
Ah, that's interesting.
It's Jelly and Sonny over here against Kip Sabian. And here's another thing. Every week they get the hot start, right? They start with their biggest stars in the fucking ring. No entrances, no introductions, no whatever the fuck. Nowhere, just jump into action. 8 guys, let's fight, hit the floor. This week, Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford get an entrance and a promo to introduce this fucking big goof. They really genuinely, somebody behind this production thought that they were actually giving this guy a big introduction, using him in this fashion. And I'm sure since he's only been in the WWE system, that he's a complete fucking novice when it comes to getting himself over. So he probably thought that they were doing him some favors here with this big debut. He comes out, at least he's wearing his shirt, not Mickey and Minnie's. And he came out like a fucking badass, right? But then you have to have the match with these people. And Sabian starts with Sonny Kiss. Between the two of them, 362 pounds, but not 1 ounce of testosterone. And they did their normal cheerleading routine where Sonny ended up with a fucking triple fucking handspring across the ropes and a slap in the face. Then Jelly tried. At one point, did you see Jelly was going to tag Sonny to do some attempt at a double team, and Sonny stepped into the ring first and then tagged Jelly. Like he got completely lost. It's a contest between Jelly and Sonny to see which one of the two of them can make the least contact on any of their strikes. Early in the match, Miro got in, did 2 moves, and tagged out. I wrote, he's smart. Stay out of this as much as possible. But that came to an end very quickly. There was there was a part where Kip Sabian tags Miro, and then Sabian shoots Sonny Kiss off and drop toe holds Sonny Kiss flat in front of Miro, who was standing there looking at him, and then picked him up. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw every bit of this match.
Somebody was supposed to be doing something else. Miro threw Sonny around and toyed with him. Sonny and Jelly, did you see the false tag they did where they'd been beating Sonny up and finally he tags Jelly and Jelly comes in, but the Ref Aubrey didn't see it? You saw that part, right?
Oh, yeah.
Would you like me to explain to the fans as well as the wrestlers involved in the match why they fucked that up completely and exactly how?
You are the tag team expert?
All right, when you're doing a false tag, which is what it's called, a false tag is when the babyface has been getting the heat put on him, but finally he manages to get the tag that he's been fighting for, and he touches his partner's hand, but the referee is momentarily distracted, hopefully by a manager or something, very briefly, just a turn of a head, doesn't see the tag, turns back around, sees the illegal guy coming in as a house of fire, as they say, and blocks him off, so that then the fucking heels swarm like bees on the fucking babyface that has been getting the heat put on him and hurt him even worse, while the referee's attention is diverted, putting the babyface that made the tag, but she didn't see, out of the ring. To do this, what Sonny did was he went over and he did whatever to get away from the heel, and he tagged Jelly, and then rolled into the babyface corner and laid there and sold, and Jelly came in with his fucking fists, and the heels all backed up. And then the referee turns around and sees Jelly there and is supposed to put Jelly out. Well, here's the thing. The referee also turned around and saw Sonny laying in their corner. There is no way they didn't make a tag, because Jelly would have had to walk past Sonny to get where he was standing. So the referee would instantly see that they had to have made a tag to be where they are and would have allowed it. The heels, when Sonny created the opening and made that tag, should have immediately grabbed Sonny and jerked him back into the middle of the ring, or bumped him away, or thrown him over the shoulder and brought him back, or take a rolling bump, in some way get away from the babyface corner. So that way, when the referee turns right around from the momentary distraction, she sees Jelly coming into the ring from the corner, and Sonny is all the way on the opposite side of the ring. That's what makes the false tag make sense when the fans are watching it. This didn't make sense because it was fucked up. It looked stupid. It buried Ref Aubrey. I then wrote at that point that no main event talent in any company in the recorded history of wrestling has had his television debut a match where he's doing false tag spots in a 20-minute competitive match with preliminary, at best, talent. This contrived bullshit also that Sonny Kiss does, where he has to move somehow like a girl would before he does any of his moves, is fucking old already. And since his work, frankly, sucks pond water, in my opinion, he ought to concentrate. I didn't say anything else. It sucks pond water. He ought to concentrate on his work first, because he's got to do a split and slap a guy in the face, or do some awkward, contrived, effeminate movement and then do a move, and the guy's supposed to sit there and watch it and sell it, or whatever the fuck. Is this inclusive wrestling or pretend wrestling? The wrestling is the first part. If you can't do that right, don't do the fucking gimmick shit. It's getting old quick. Sonny at one point made a tag to Jelly, who came in with a clothesline that Sabian had to fall down on purpose for, because I don't know if it would have batted a balloon across a windy room. Miro tried to do a spot with Jelly and got dumped over the top rope and apparently hurt his ankle. He wasn't selling it in the closing moments of the match, but this had to be legitimate because he was selling it at a point where he shouldn't have been selling anything. He was selling it more realistically than he sold anything else in the match, and he actually had to wave fucking Sabian on at one point to do the spot they had planned because Sabian didn't know whether he was going to be able to do it or not, which was Miro backdropping. He backdropped Jelly over the rail out into the arena first and then backdropped his own partner toward Jelly, but Sabian missed Jelly and went head first to the floor. So then the camera shows this while Jelly is yelling, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" Go back and watch it. The "Are you all right" was from Jelly on television asking his opponent if he was all right because he forgot they were on TV. Because he probably wasn't all right to begin with, since an idiot just backdropped him on his head on the concrete, but that's for the referee to fucking ask or roll over there and fucking do it quietly. You fucking unprofessional twit. Then Miro started bumping for Jelly and Sonny Kiss, their brand new WWE star they stole, their big Bulgarian brute, their goddamn whatever the fuck that they have thought this guy was going to be, is taking bumps all over the building for Jelly and Sonny Kiss. And it went on, and the heels couldn't put these stooges away. And then finally, Miro beat Sonny. Is there a more boring move possible to choose for this guy to complete the bed shitting that was his national television debut for these idiots than the camel clutch?
Well, that was his finishing maneuver in the WWE.
Well, in that case, no wonder he's gone from the WWE, because that just capped it for me. There's fucking idiots out there bumping for these fucking job guys that look physically, one looks physically worse than anybody on television anywhere, and the other one looks faker. And they go 17 minutes, actually, I wrote down. The first 17 minutes of the show is putting this guy, Miro, in the middle of a bunch of fucking underneath comedy outlaw talent and having him either get hurt, almost get hurt, definitely get lost, look like shit as far as a wrestler, and ineffectual in the fans' eyes because he couldn't beat these two stooges. What the fuck? And then the most boring move in the history of wrestling to cap off his debut. What'd you think of it?
Really bad way to debut Miro. I thought he looked good. I thought he looked impressive. He's a beast, like you said. But this match, and this match going as long as it did, was very problematic. Not good, incredibly sloppy. You pointed out a lot of those things. Every Jelly match, there's a point where he tries to be more athletic than he actually is. He's not an athlete. He's not someone who has an athletic bone in his body. Now, you don't need that, obviously, nowadays to be in professional wrestling. You could just go in the ring and put on a show. But every match of his, that gets to a point where he starts doing stuff, and he can't do it. He's not athletically capable of doing
but I'll go this far. There's been some, in the days of the workers, there have been some guys that drew a lot of money in this business without being athletic at all, but they could make people believe they were. They worked like they were. This ain't either. All right.
Horrible tag. I mean, just the worst tag team in professional wrestling right now are these two.
Well,
and what a waste of Miro. I said it to you. I said it to you for months before he got to AEW that I thought WWE was wasting him. And this guy is a real talent. You have to use him the right way, though.
Well, and apparently he's clueless as to what that is, because here's the thing, Tommaso Champa, he knows who the fuck he is. He knows how he needs to be presented. A lot of these guys do not. I think that's why that they've not necessarily because of the bad creative, because of the fact that they didn't give creative any goddamn coherent option. Brody Lee, Miro, all these guys, they come here, they're worse than they fucking started. Anyway, Eddie Kingston came out and did a wonderful promo, as he often does. He's taken Lance Archer's spot against Moxley tonight for the title. He did a great promo. Moxley came out and actually moved and got there. He didn't take 5 minutes to come through the arena. He came through the arena, but he got there quick, and they did the face-to-face. So I was actually pretty much looking more forward to seeing that now than I would have what they originally had, because I figured they didn't have time to come up with some goofy finish to fuck it all up, which I was right. Any thoughts on Eddie's promo?
Eddie is a great promo. He's just a fantastic promo. I did get a kick out of the fact that Moxley came out of that side door again once his music hit, and then later on he came from the other side of the building. I'm waiting for him just to pop up out of a trash can.
Don't give him any idea.
I want to see. I watched Sesame Street the other day with my daughter. That's where I got the idea. Thinking Moxley should just pop up out of a trash can, Oscar the Grouch style. But when he walked through that side door, I just started laughing. At this point, it's just silly. He does promos in front of fences. He comes through every possible entrance other than the entrance. 2 different ones on this episode. Where was he in between those segments? Where did he go? What does he do?
Wait a minute, don't spoil anything. We haven't got to the other one later on.
I want them to put a camera crew on him for a little documentary. A day in the life of Jon Moxley, only at the TV tapings. Where does he go? What does he do? What does he spend his time doing while the matches are happening? I want to know. The people want to know.
He comes from a long line of chain link fence repairmen, so he's checking out all those chain link fences. The next segment, good Lord have mercy, Kenny Olivier comes out to do color commentary again, looking like he just woke up, and now the announcers are making fun of it, that he comes out looking like a fucking slob. And I mean, and this guy has less energy, less entertainment value, less personality. He either sounds like he's asleep, or sometimes he started out like he was singing his promos, like he had a little lilt of a little music to them like that, or other times it's just like he doesn't care, like he's been sucking helium. He called Pizzeria Uno, I quote, a man with a hell of a mouth. And then he made mention it was because of the teeth on the guy's mask. But this match was Olivier's estranged partner, Adam Page, against Pizzeria Uno of the Dork Order with all the rest of the fucking Dork Order. And Uno out there, that outfit, he looks like he failed a casting call for a German S&M video, and not even a professional production, but an amateur. Page is great, but him competitive with a guy that would look like shit on an indie show just looks like a low-rent visual and keeps them to their niche audience. Any of the WWE fans that haven't tried this, or any old-time wrestling fans, can click over here and look at, well, this is just fucking goofs. That's what keeps them to their core audience, their very devoted core audience. But nobody else is going to watch this shit because it looks so goofy. They did a spot where the referee helped hold Adam Page's leg for Pizzeria Uno to do his fucking move. Did you see that?
Yep.
I didn't imagine, and then it went through a break. So at least I didn't imagine that. I wrote during the break that this match is even happening, much less through 2 segments, is an example of how that the Young Bucks and their fucking friends sold their friends to this guy. They didn't search for talent. They had all their buddies that they got tickled by on all these outlaw shows, and they realized they had a guy with money and connections that was a sucker for this shit, and at the expense of starting a viable new opposition promotion to the WWE that could grow and could go somewhere, they hired all their buddies for 5 times as much as anybody else in the business was paying them to come out here and look like a goddamn shit show, which is why I cannot respect anybody involved in this fucking shenanigan. At one point, the heels were gonna menace or beat up Paige, and Olivier is like, well, should I go back there or should I go down there? Well, no, Uno will do the right thing. What the heel will do the right thing, so I don't have to back up Paige. But then the heels do the right thing. They all fucking leave. So the Dark Orders, the heels did the right thing and left ringside. Olivier's jilted lover is now against Uno one-on-one, so Kenny doesn't have to run down there. And it took Adam Page about 10 false finishes to beat this fucking guy. And they wonder why that everything just it just means nothing. I don't know. And how long did this thing take?
I'm not sure.
Any comments?
I like Anna Jay. She looks great. Omega's so bad on commentary. It's almost like a joke. It's almost like they're doing it just so as a response to us talking about how bad it was last week.
Well, I think it's because he just doesn't care. He doesn't want to attempt to be credible and sound real, because then that would his nerd goof video game playing fucking fan base with, oh, look, Kenny's not cool. He's trying to make us believe this is real instead of a joke. That's their fucking clientele. And also, he has no personality. He's like he's cruising on Lake Havasoma on a regular basis and not even having the fun of taking the actual drugs. He's just fucking dim-witted. Fucking bland. And speaking of the fucking middle school children, Tony Schiavone was at the door of the Bucks' locker room. He is not going to be ever referred to again as Road Warrior Buck, because he doesn't deserve the fucking name. He will now be called Giant Buck, because he works like he's 7 feet tall. Unless you come up with something even funnier, and then we might go with that. Giant Buck did a promo at the locker room door with Tony Schiavone, and they're heels now. They're smart-ass heels. That makes no sense. Just as FTR get here so that they could actually be baby faces with heels that could actually get heat against them, they've now turned heel. And in a smart-ass way, he's going to, oh, the Bucks are going to do better with our friends. And he's smart-ass with Tony, and he breaks Tony's cell phone. And then, Tony has to make a joke about it. Jesus Christ. Moving on. The TV title was on the line. I swear, folks, I'm not making this up. They thought that it would be a good idea to have Brody Lee, Boring Brody Lee, their new TV champion, another of these big, giant heels they've stolen away from the WWE that could, if they were only unleashed, then we'd see how great they are. And this guy has stunk the joint out. He has the stench of grisly fucking death on him every time he comes out on television, and he's going to take on Pockets. They started out doing comedy with one of the jobbers, because he's got all the Dork Order jobbers with him, the jobbers and Pockets t-shirt. And then Pockets starts the hands in the pockets and does the shin kicks. And Brody Lee fucking hits him with one punch and knocks him goofy. But people say, well, see, Brody Lee didn't sell any of the kicks. And then he hit Pockets and Pockets went down. Yes. Idiots, why would that ever happen? Why would you be standing in front of Brody Lee in a supposed fight or match or contest or anything? And if Brody Lee was any danger at all, if this was in any way really happening, why would you start, whether you don't care or not, and you're just a disgruntled millennial? Why would you start with slow motion shin kicks that don't land? And not expect to get knocked, your dick knocked stiff. It would never happen. That's why the whole gimmick is garbage. It's not a gimmick that was well thought out, that appeals to people in some fashion that applies to professional wrestling. It's goofiness that would never actually take place in real life. It's just a guy acting like an ass. And it's stupid. So Brody Lee, by extension, is a complete fucking phony, stupid idiot for being involved in this. That is what the mindset would be of anybody except the AEW fans watching this foolishness. That's why they will not get more viewers, because they can't accept that a lot of people ain't going to fucking buy this horse shit. Pockets did a dive and the jobbers caught him. You see this part. Pockets does one of his dives, but all the jobbers catch him on the floor, and then Brody Lee is in the ring, hits the ropes and does a dive and wipes out Pockets and his own guys. Brian, explain to me why you would do that. Why would that happen?
He doesn't care about his own guys.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, unless you're a complete blithering idiot, the guy that you're fighting that is a foot shorter and 100 pounds lighter than you has just jumped onto your guys, and your guys have caught him, and they have him right where they want him. And all they have to do is throw him back in the ring to you, and you can knock him out without hurting yourself at all. But instead, you decide to run and dive head first on the theory that they might be there when you fucking land. And you take as big a chance as hurting yourself as you do of your opponent, who was in no way a threat to you because your guys already had a hold of him. Now does it make sense?
You may have a point.
All right.
You may have a point.
Then he got some heat, in quotation marks, on Pockets at a glacial pace. He did another flip, one of those sentons, barely hit fucking Pockets. Jobbers got some heat on the outside on Pockets. It looks so embarrassing again. Brody Lee hit a nice Bubba Slam and got a 2 count, and they went to the break. This fucking joke guy is now taking one of the 2 singles champions in the company through 2 segments, and he's going to press him.
Why shouldn't he? No one else can win a match quickly.
Well,
everyone goes through the commercial break. Every match is 20 minutes. Why not him?
They come back, and they're still going, and it's a joke at this point. And Brody's tossing him around at a snail's pace. But then his Pockets playing possum, the announcers ask. Well, it would have been a good idea if they since he was playing possum, they probably shouldn't have said it. But since they did, before that he revealed he was, he was playing possum afterwards. They said, I bet he's playing possum. And then he revealed he was. After he has got the shit kicked out of him for the previous 5 minutes by this giant, he makes an awkward, fake-looking comeback that Brody Lee also plodded through trying to keep up, did 2 dives, beat up the job guys on the floor and Brody Lee. After all the heat that got, now he's just run amok. And I figured something out. Another reason I don't like Pockets. But I couldn't figure out why until I saw it here. I analyzed it. He can't hit the fucking ropes. And he not only does he can't hit it, he looks odd visually whenever he hit the ropes. To me, whenever I've seen him, it looked odd. And sometimes his hands were in his pockets, so I figured, okay, that makes sense because he's hitting ropes with hands in his pockets. But now he started hitting the ropes with no hands in his pockets. And I don't know how. I'll try to explain this. I've never seen it done like this. I don't know. He obviously didn't learn this from somebody, but the reason why he looks so awkward and pity-patty feet whenever he's coming off the fucking ropes and it looks like just a little skinny fuck scampering. When he goes into the ropes, instead of turning and throwing his right arm up over the top and hitting the fucking top ropes with the meat under his right shoulder with his right foot back and his left in front so that he's going to be springing off into the goddamn stride. Go look at all the top WWE guys that hit the ropes and glide across the ring like goddamn, magic, right? This fucking guy, when he turns to his left. That's what you're supposed to do, but he hits the ropes completely flat of his back, with his right elbow up over the top rope, and I noticed it because I slow-moed it. His left arm is completely down at his side to the point where he actually does this. He grabs the middle rope with his left hand every time he hits the ropes. left arm straight at his side, flat backed against the ropes, and grabs the second rope, the middle rope, with his left hand. And his feet are completely parallel to each other, not right foot back, left foot in front into the stride. They're just completely parallel. He's starting completely from scratch on a run every time he comes off the ropes. And that weird thing, and I know it wasn't an accident, because he grabbed the rope with the left hand 3 times in a row when he was hitting the ropes. This is bizarre. This is self-trained bullshit. So no wonder everybody's always off balance or out of control or looks like they got happy feet or just some shit that no wonder they fuck up so many fucking moves. Anyway, Pockets kicked the shit out of Brody Lee and got false finish after false finish until finally Brody Lee caught him and powerbombed him. And I wrote, any investment that they have made in Brody Lee whatsoever has been completely wasted. Just another one of these goofy guys at this point. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, you and I will disagree on one thing, I'll tell you. Brody Lee is growing on me.
What?
In the ring, he's growing on me.
Do you mean like fungus?
I mean like fungus, yeah. I actually have started to enjoy what he does in the ring. I don't agree with the way he's being booked, who he's being booked with, and how those matches go. But ever since the Cody match, which was a squash, I have started to enjoy Brody Lee a little bit. Now, I'm not a fan of Orange Cassidy. I have a big problem with this match going this long, etc. But I don't think Brody Lee was the problem here.
He couldn't save it, I'll tell you that much.
And I don't know. I mean,
I'm just seeing plod. I'm seeing screaming promos where the eyes tell me that he's trying to fucking talk himself into meaning what he's saying.
You see, I think the promos have been all right. I don't like the Dark Order. I mean, Anna Jay's great, but I don't like him.
Maybe she'll have a wardrobe malfunction, cowboy.
Don't do that. They'll cancel you. But I don't like him with a giant team of jobbers. I do like the dynamic with him and Colt Cabana. I've enjoyed Colt Cabana, the last several months or so. But I'm not a fan of the Dark Order, so don't take this as me saying the Dark Order is a great concept, a great idea. But I think Brody Lee's been all right, and I actually thought his promo was pretty good after this. But again, he's with a giant team of jobbers, so I mean, it's...
Okay, well, let's talk about the promo for a second, because here's the thing. After the match, lights go out to come back on. Here's Cody in a suit with jet black hair. And I like it better, to be honest. The blonde's a little but he hits the ring and he beats up 2 of the job guys from the Dark Order. And he keeps one of them and figure fours him and does all kinds of shit. But where did all the other heels just disappeared? I mean, not even, did you even see them running off? Or was it just in passing or whatever? It was a great entrance that Cody made and a great start to a big comeback, but a lousy end where the heels just went poof, disappear, and you got one fucking job guy there and no referees trying to stop it. I don't know what the fuck.
I didn't like the idea that after all this, after a squash and a beatdown of him and his family and friends, that his comeback is, okay, let me get my big introduction and calmly walk through the tunnel with this video and lights and smoke and lasers and whatever else, the music. That I didn't like. Why wouldn't
and then beat up the least important member of the group that hurt me to begin with, and while the other people and should Brody Lee have run off since he had 7 guys with him?
Why? I mean, I would have had Cody come through the crowd and jump the rail and go after them.
Make a huge ass comeback on and bump all the job guys out of the goddamn ring and get face to face and maybe start a 1-2 with Brody Lee and fill the ring up with referees and agents and let Brody Lee take a bump over the top to the floor and land on his fucking feet and all of his guys hold him back. But I don't know where the fuck this all went. And then the interview, the reason I didn't like the interview, and also besides the fact that I just don't see him meaning it and feel him meaning it, but also he got the dog collar and kind of sort of, but didn't challenge for a match. And what does he have to do with a dog collar to begin with? He doesn't have a dog and he hasn't had a collar.
That did come out of nowhere.
It comes out, he just says, here, give me that. He takes a dog collar from somebody off camera and apparently books or challenges for a dog collar match for next week, but it wasn't clear from whatever the fuck he said. That's why I didn't like the interview, because he didn't say anything.
Was it for next week?
Well, who knows? Was sometime? He mentioned some point. Was it the next pay-per-view or the next week or the next, or I don't know, at some time.
Hey, I want to mention, because I've talked about for a few weeks how Alex Marvez shouldn't be doing it. It should be Dasha. Dasha was on this week's show. I don't know if that's because of the outbreak or for another reason. What did you think of the job Dasha did this week?
Well, she, for what little she got to do, I think a couple times they ran her off pretty much, right? But yes, she's fine, and she's not only more cosmetically pleasing than Officer Barbrady, but she actually is an interviewer. Is better as well because she's a little more natural on television, but that, yes, more TV friendly people. Good God, this show is still going. Matt Hardy came out with Private Party in the ring. Private Party were wearing their finest leopard print pajamas. Matt said 2 or 3 weeks ago he was going to take time off, and we haven't got rid of him yet. How can I miss you if you won't go away? His promo was wondering who attacked him from behind last week. He doesn't know who it was. He suspects Jericho and Hager, who admitted it last week, basically. But then Jericho and Hager come out and deny it and bring Sammy Guevara back. Matt, I didn't like this promo. It didn't work not because of Matt, but because of what he was apparently instructed to talk about and the way he was supposed to do it. But anyway, Jericho says, I'll fight you now. Matt accepts it, even though he's not cleared. He'll just fucking fight him anyway. But Mark Quinn says, no, I'll take it in your place. But then Isaiah Cassidy said, no. It's my fight next week. This took a really long time, and we ended up finding out that Chris Jericho will wrestle Isaiah Cassidy next week, and that Isaiah Cassidy sounds like Michael Jackson doing a wrestling promo. You're going to be the champion, bitch. Like that.
What were those noises you just did at the end there? Was that Michael Jackson?
It was Michael Jackson as played by Orange Cassidy.
Or by Orange Cassidy.
Or by Isaiah Cassidy. How many Cassidys they got? Good Lord. Anyway, Michael Jackson Cassidy next week against Jericho. Any thoughts on this?
No, I don't have any thoughts on this. No.
Tony Schiavone in the ring now with FTR and Tully Blanchard. Brian, explain to me what Tully said. And once again, it's not because of Tully. I have been in this position. I've seen guys in this position, especially when working in the same company with Shitstain, where you are told to say shit that is so convoluted and ridiculous and doesn't follow a train of logical thought and it doesn't make sense together, but they've said say it, and you can't figure it out yourself, so you can't say it. And that's why in TNA, I used to make a lot of those match announcements because, honestly, quite frankly, I was the only one that could fucking relay all those stipulations in any kind of coherent manner where people had a chance of understanding it. This is, to me, what Tully Blanchard was tasked with here in this promo. Did you feel the same way?
I like this intensity.
Yeah.
But the 60-minute rule and the 20-minute rule, I don't know. There had to be a better way, an easier way to explain whatever they were trying to explain.
And I guarantee he was trying to do it the way they told him. But some way or another, they went from it's great for the fan. The only way the fans are going to be able to see these great champion wrestlers FTR is if we change the time limit of the world title matches from 60 minutes to 20 minutes on TV so the fans will get to see the best team, which regardless of the time limit, they still get to see them on television. And then also FTR gets to pick the opponents to wrestle on television. Okay, well now they've got a heel manager and they're allegedly heels, so they're trying to act like heels. They get to pick the opponents. But next week it's SCU, and that's not exactly a fucking job team. But also then they reveal that the opponents have to win in 20 minutes or less, or elsewise that means FTR really wins even if they don't win. So they get a handicap. I didn't follow the train of logic here from the time that it went choo-choo to the time that it left the station to the time that it pulled up at the goddamn Shady Rest. I didn't follow that train of logic.
Maybe the problem is it went choo-choo instead of toot-toot.
And then Dax did a pretty good promo for a second. He mentioned that the butt buddies, the best friends, are comedic backyard wrestlers. And then the butt buddies came out and challenged them for right now. And then the guys made their own match again. But then FTR backed out because since the butt buddies are hurt, they don't want to take advantage of them. And then Fuckface Taylor called FTR the worst name ever directed at anyone on a wrestling program. You guys are just a bunch of weenies. So now the guys can make their own matches, but then they can back out of their own matches. And I don't know what the rules to these matches are. And they're weenies. Weenies, Brian. The next match was Ivelisse and Diamante against Hikaru Shida and Thunder Rosa. Guess what? After that, Chris Jericho and MJF were in the back. And they put each other over, backhanded as heels, and then argued with each other over calling each other loser last week. And they did a bit. And it was a contrived bit, but it was better than any other bit on this show. But we've got 20 minutes of the Dork Order every fucking week, and MJF gets a 2-minute pre-tape if we're lucky. I don't understand. And then finally, the main event, and I'll let you chime in on this one at this point, for the AEW title. Eddie Kingston, probably the first major world title, if you can call it that, shot that he's had in his 18-year career against our friend Stone Cold John Moxley. And Moxley, this already came to the ring once through the arena, and at least he did it quick for the face-to-face, but he had to come back through the entire arena again.
The other side this time.
The other side, at least. He's moving around. He wants to be a moving target. What did you think?
Is he tailgating in the parking lot? Like,
I don't know what
does he go in between the segments?
Because it's cool. It's cool when somebody does that. It makes them an outsider. It makes them different. They don't play well with others. They have a loner lifestyle.
Does he wait by the door for someone to hit his music? Or does someone track where he is, and as soon as he's getting ready to kick through the door from the side of the arena, do they play his music?
I think he just stands there and waits on it.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah. Everyone knows it's Moxley. That's me. All right, what did you think of this match at first? Give me your thoughts.
Not very much. I'm not a fan of Moxley in the ring. Not a fan of Moxley in the ring at all. So I didn't really think much of it.
Well, that's where I knew you were going to go. Because you know what? And this is faint praise, but this was a good match for Moxley. In my opinion, because, hear me out on this, since they didn't do what they couldn't do we talked about every match, Moxley ends up on the floor, he's rattling furniture around, he's ignoring the referee, whether it's a no DQ or not, he has to do the garbage hardcore stuff on the outside. There's got to be some bump off of a high fucking precipice, whatever the fuck, right? It tends toward garbage matches even when he doesn't have to do them. So now they don't mean anything because that's all he does. Now would have been the perfect time to have given people kind of a hardcore match, not the stupid shit with the furniture, but it's both guys' style to be brawlers, to be fighters. It's a substitution. So there, it was supposed to be Archer, but it's Kingston. So maybe you open up and give them a little more there. This would have been the rule of thumb to give people a brawl. But they couldn't really, since Moxley's done it in every match he's had so far, so it means nothing. But this would have been the place for him to do it, but having to rely most on just being man-to-man in the ring and hitting hard, I thought, except for the time they went to the floor and Moxley got thrown through the fucking timekeeper's table or whatever, the heavy chops, the strikes, the grappling, the decent hard-hitting stuff, they didn't bring furniture in the ring for once. It was just two guys fighting. I'm not a fan of Moxley. I think the Kingston style works for him, but this was a fairly decent fucking Moxley match. I wasn't a fan late in the match when they let each other do the trading. Yeah, you hit me and then I'll hit you on purpose and stand there and wait on it. But finally, basically, boom, 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 some back and forth, and Moxley gets a choke and chokes him out. A touch flat. I wouldn't have beat Kingston that flat under these, circumstances, but it wasn't stupid. So it got points with me that Moxley's matches don't usually get because they didn't do anything stupid till afterwards. That's why I didn't mind it as much.
I mean, I see where you're coming from.
Feel free to tell me to go fuck myself with a rusty fishing knife.
Hey, go fuck yourself.
What are you, some kind of tough guy? But, okay, here's the thing. Immediately after the chokeout, here comes Felix and Penta 3-2-1 blast off. And they get heat on Moxley. But then here comes Will Hobbs, and he makes a save, even though one of the heels forgot to feed him. I think it was Felix, forgot to feed him. Then the heels take over again. Then Darby Allin hits out of nowhere with the skateboard gut shots. Then Ricky Starks spears Darby Allin, and they get more heel heat. And nobody tries to fucking help. No referees, no security, no agents, no nada. It's just they've got to go off the show with bad guys beating up good guys, suppose. So it's the same. And that was that show.
Yes, it was. I like Ricky Starks. I want to see Ricky Starks versus Darby Allin. I've been looking forward to that match for a while.
If they ever get to it before I zone out on the whole fucking thing, that would be just brilliant.
But again, another ridiculous. Darby Allin's coming in there to help make the save. His music plays for like 15 seconds because there's not that much of a distance between the walkway and the ring. So it plays so everyone can turn around and see that he's coming. And then they shut off the music and he goes in there.
Well, and also gut shots with skateboard, gut shots with folding chair. If you got something like that in your hand, hit the motherfucker over the head with it. If not, don't bring it because it's stupid. Anyway, any closing thoughts before we go to a palate cleansing discussion on Road Warrior Animal and a little watch along here?
No. I'll give you the ratings real quick.
Okay, let's see what happened.
Hold on, I accidentally closed them. Let me go back to the ratings. The ratings for this week's Wednesday Night War. NXT, 696. AEW, 835. So
about 150,000, same difference as last week. Thereabouts.
That's right.
Rough numbers. It's the same thing it's going to be. Ain't nobody new. Ain't nobody new gonna watch this. Ain't nobody new gonna watch this because it's stupid. So that's where we're stuck. It's and when they're unopposed, then the 200,000 floaters float around. I don't know what else needs to prove this. And we made the point also, and I will say again, listen to the drive-thru for the Ring of Honor review this coming week also, and listen to the one we just did. They've come to the realization in a pandemic, they don't have to sell tickets, and the ratings are going to be what the ratings are going to be. So they are actually starting to re-educate their audience to a more athletic form of wrestling so that it will mean things when they filter in the entertainment again in the future. When somebody cheats or somebody trash talks, somebody is whatever, it'll mean something because it'll be different. It'll stand out and it'll be made an issue out of. Whereas these other guys with the same audience every week are just, everybody is just going out of their minds, bashing each other, running over each other with goddamn tanks and cars and motorcycles and whatever the fuck. And it's, by the time they can sell any tickets again, they won't be able to do anything people haven't seen. It's insane. Before we do our watch along, I forgot to mention, what are you doing this week over on the other programs?
Another fine week of programming on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information about all shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes here. The latest episode of Breaking Kayfabe with Bowdrin and Barry. The boys are joined by Glamour Girl Judy Martin. Check that out today at BowdrinPod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcast. Also want to make mention of Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam. They recently had a look at TNT. Tuesday Night Titans, not the network that has AEW on. Check that out today at McAdamPod.com. And the newest episode of Charting the Territories is out right now. Al Getz and John Boucher take a historical look using statistics at Leroy McGurk and Bill Watts' territory. A lot of interesting stuff on here, including some stuff about Jerry Brown of the Hollywood Blondes, who just passed away this past week. We didn't even talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about that on the drive-thru. But hear that today at chartingthepodcast.com. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership. Well, thank you. I think you need a new soundboard. We got to get you some more sound effects.
Yeah, we got to get me some more stuff.
See, I've heard that one. I've felt that one. Hey. Sounds like my bedroom. What's going on over here?
Hey, wait a minute.
Hey, go through the archive today at 605pod.com. Of course, the show's available wherever you find your favorite podcast. The latest episode is in production right now, but go through the archive and hear the finest in classic wrestling talk. The 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership! People get happy. People are very happy when I do two in a row.
People get happy when you do two in a row.
In my bedroom. Hee-haw!
Yeehaw!
Is it
All
yeehaw
right.
or hee-haw? Your little
I don't
sound
ask
effect.
Adam Page. I don't know. That's some cowboy shit. I don't know.
It's your
what's going on.
soundboard. It's your soundboard.
Well, it can be whatever you want it to be.
All right.
Hee-haw! Hee-haw.
That's
See,
he.
there it is.
That's he.
All right. Anyway, I guess what was it now that when this comes out is day before yesterday. We heard sudden news that Joe Laurinaitis, Road Warrior Animal, had passed away. We still don't know exactly what happened. I was not aware of him being in bad health. As I mentioned earlier in the program, I saw him. It was a few years ago. He looked great. He looked like Animal. So we don't know what happened there, but it was, I guess I did see that he was on vacation, I guess, at a resort, I assume with his family or some family member. But anyway, obviously, this is a big deal, and I'm glad they got the chance to do the Dark Side of the Ring show on the Road Warriors last year. The Animal got to be a part of it. At least that got something out. I know you're a documentarian that likes to cover everything, but at least it wouldn't have been able to have been done if both of them were gone. And so at least they got that in. With Hawk, a lot of people have mentioned in the past, you kind of expected something because Hawk was a wild man, but Animal was always the more calm, level-headed, business-like, reasonable, etc. I'm not knocking Hawk here, but you know what I'm trying to say. Animal was the guy you thought, okay, Animal's all right. So I didn't expect that, but it's another one of these situations where you don't really know what to say. But as far as working with him, being close to him, we never had a single problem with either one of those guys. And we figure Paul Ellering in with any of the three of them. All the years that both versions of the Midnight and I worked with them. I've told a bunch of stories. I'll gleam over a few right now, but you can go back and look at our archives if you want to hear more details. But it just, the fact that they were always, see, the difference between the Road Warriors and, we talked recently about the Ultimate Warrior and how he was one of the big muscle guys that got into business, didn't know what he was doing, and he never tried to get better. And he didn't care if he necessarily hurt people or how good his matches were. The Road Warriors were not of that ilk, neither Joe nor Mike. They got the rep when they started in the business, but they were stiff and they were going to hurt you and beat you up. And with the job guys on TV, and in some cases that was true, not because they were pricks, but because they were fucking two goddamn giant badass bouncers, 500-pound bench press on Animal, and Hawk with the fucking traps and the whole 9 yards. They were used to fighting, and they just broke in the business. They were green. They weren't being pricks. They were being stiff because they didn't know any other way. And, the old story was true. A lot of times the guys would walk into Atlanta TV and the job guys, and if they'd see they were going to go against the Road Warriors or Buzz Sawyer, they wouldn't even put their bag down. They'd just get back in the car. And because Buzz Sawyer was a prick and would take advantage. But with the Road Warriors, it was just they were stiff because they were fucking huge and they were green. And fortunately, we didn't have to work with them for the first couple of years they were in the business. But when you think about it, what other tag team for their initial run, 1983 when they got put together, through 1992 when the last of that WWF run, fizzled and Hawk and Animal split up for a while and did the Japanese thing and whatever, they were always main event guys. They were always the highest paid guys, or the highest paid team, at least on the card in the NWA and in pretty much everywhere they went. They were always considered very top main event talent. They were never used in any underneath positions. That was a heck of a run, because Ole was in a jam when he first put them together, and he had to just smash some tag team over, and that's what he did. And because they were so different, they looked different, they didn't sell anything, they were just so impressive. They weren't really heels at first. They were presented as heels, but they didn't know how to heel because they didn't really know how to cheat. So with Ellering as a manager, that at least got them the verbal heat. And he also, that's another thing. They tried to learn. They listened to Paul, and he was already a veteran, so he was able to coach them. So over those first couple of years, they were definitely a top team. They were used great. They weren't the greatest workers, but they started learning how to work as themselves, as we've talked about here earlier on the show with other people. And they figured out what they could do that the Road Warriors should do. And it's not that they couldn't do anything else, but sometimes they shouldn't do other shit. So I've also shot the hole in the myth that they wouldn't sell. They would sell for you if it was done right. Nobody could go up to them face to face with the odds even and get the better of them. That would kill the Road Warriors. But even with smaller guys like the Midnight Express or me with a loaded racket, if you did it 2-on-1 or from behind or with a foreign object, they'd sell like crazy, because they knew then that the team that they were working with was then going to get some heat on them so they could make their big comeback. And they had to create some kind of jeopardy for themselves. And really, if that's the only thing that hurt the Road Warriors toward the end of their run in the NWA, was that they had such an invincible aura that people had kind of stopped believing that anybody was going to beat them or hurt them or whatever. Really, and it worked against them. We've mentioned that when a babyface team, or babyface especially, has no threat, then it's hard to get people interested. They're still over, but they don't want to pay to see the matches. So even though their first real big national money program, I think, was with the Russians, because that was a great fit. You had Nikita could fucking back up the goddamn physical part of it. Darso was a Minnesota guy that they knew, and he could work like crazy, and Ivan Koloff was a veteran. And so the three of them with the Road Warriors and Paul, that was money, and that made sense, and they worked at the AWA and the NWA and all over the place. But by then, they were really starting to figure out how to do this stuff. And by the time that we got a chance to start working with them and met them, at first you think Bobby and Dennis weren't fucking scared to look at those guys. And I'm like, holy fuck, I'm going to be taking some bumps eventually. But once we sat and talked to them and worked with them a few times, you had to keep an eye out. They could sometimes get a little excited. And, even a love tap for them was fucking, deadly business. But once that they understood that we were going to do everything we could to put their shit over and make them look as good as possible, there was no problem ever in the ring. And they were funny as fuck to hang out with. Paul was more laid back, but he's, I'd known him since Memphis in the late 70s. And Joe and Mike, they wanted to be and were one of the boys. Their matches got better. They didn't just want a steamroller over everybody. Job guys on TV is one thing. That's where they're doing business. But they took care of guys that they worked with that took care of them. And we enjoyed it. And like I said, I talked to Hawk more often. I've told the story about how he'd sit next to me on Crockett's plane. I made the deal with him. I said, if anything happens, knock me out, right? Don't worry, Jimmy. Because Hawk liked to get drunk and fuck it. For some reason, I tickled him. So he'd get drunk on the plane every once in a while and put me over for jumping off the scaffold, right? You did it, kid, But Joe, I got a chance to actually sit down and have lunch with a couple years ago at one of the last Legends of the Ring deal that I went to up in New Jersey. I was in the hotel restaurant and had just ordered something to eat, and Joe came in, and he was by himself too. So he said, hey, is the food any good here? I said, it's okay whenever you get it. You might not, get it till tomorrow. And I said, sit down. So we talked and bullshitted a while, and I didn't think anything of it at the time otherwise, and it was nice to be able to sit down and catch up with him and just, tell some old stories and remember, oh, you remember so-and-so, you remember such and such. But it's especially, I guess, good now because that's the last time I saw him. And we actually got to sit down for the first time ever away from a wrestling event and with nobody else around and just have a nice conversation for 45 minutes or whatever. And, we made a lot of money with those guys. When you think about it, the Road Warriors versus the Midnight Express was probably, I know the Midnight Express's second most profitable program in their career next to the Rock and Roll Express. It was probably the biggest drawing. The Midnight Rock and Roll gets all the attention on the record gates and all that stuff, but the Midnight Road Warriors was probably the second biggest tag team program at the box office that the Midnight Express had. And I would say was probably behind Midnight Rock and Roll and Road Warriors and Russians, the biggest drawing NWA tag team program in the 80s. And it's just that, they get attention for being with the Russians and we get attention for being with the Rock and Roll. But the scaffold match at Starrcade 86, Flair and Nikita was the advertised main event, but the scaffold match was the feature match. It was kind of a double main event thing. And that was the first NWA event with all the closed circuit and everything, drew $1 million. Road Warriors and Midnight, we have the record in Philadelphia for the Civic Center. They jacked the prices up. We sold out, did $165,000 for the scaffold match there, which was the NWA's all-time best in Philly. The match we're going to watch here in a second was from the Crockett Cup 87, and for whatever reason, the Crockett Cup 87 is not on the WWE Network, and the entire match was not on the home video. We're going to see about 7 minutes of it. But I know John fell in Baltimore. That was his first wrestling event. He said it's still the greatest thing he's ever seen. You mentioned that you went and watched it back before we're about to do it. And when Animal comes in and makes that comeback at the end and hits the flying shoulder block on Big Bubba, the place fucking goes absolutely insane. The Road Warrior pop was not a rib. When they came out with that music, you couldn't hear yourself think in those buildings. And the tags on the hot tags for the comebacks, they were just, the people went insane. So we're going to watch part of the Road Warriors Midnight Match from the Crockett Cup 87, which was my favorite of the ones that we had that's available on tape. There's another one we're probably going to do this weekend on the drive-thru that is from a TBS Saturday night show with Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton against the Road Warriors. That's the one where Baby Doll knocked me out in the finish. But a lot of people forget there was a World Tag Team title match in front of that. That was on an all-time record crowd in Raleigh. So, Dusty was really on his game in the mid-'80s in that in the tag team division, whoever the champions were, he could book matches with any one of 3 or 4 opposing teams, and they meant something because of something that had been done on television. There was issues between the teams. So when we were the champions, we could defend against the Road Warriors, the Rock and Roll, Dusty and Magnum, anybody, and it meant something. So we got a chance to work with them a lot through 86, again, some in 87, and then later on in 89, right before they left WCW, I've told this story, they insisted on putting us over. In Memphis, the match the night before, I think, was St. Louis. Even though the Road Warriors were leaving, Herd wouldn't let the Midnight go over anybody, so they sent the word to go ahead and put the Road Warriors over. I guess he didn't want to ask them for a job anyway. And the next night we're in Memphis, and they say, it's bullshit. We're leaving. You're staying. This is your town. We're going to put you guys over. So they did it. The only team that they ever actually said, we want to put these guys over their whole run in WCW. And the next night, the office had heard about it and changed it and said, no, we still want you guys to win anyway. So they came up with a finish where Paul jerked me in and pinned me to save the Midnight. But they would do shit for you when you treated them good. And like I said, toward the end of their main run, they had really, especially Animal. I mean, Mike came along, but he was the party guy. But they had really polished what they could do in the ring, so they weren't the dangerous guys, that they once were to their opponents. They just seemed like it to the fans. I sang you that Christmas carol I made up for them one time, didn't I?
I'm not sure I know what you're talking about.
I made him a Christmas carol, and I sang it to him on Crockett's plane one night. I said, diving through the ropes to get out of the fucking way. Here they come again. Taters all the way. It's the Road Warriors. But anyway, I mean, I don't, like I said, besides the rock and roll, the Fantastics matches were great, but we didn't make the money at the box office. The program with Tully and Arn just didn't go on long enough. In historical significance, the Road Warriors would have been, besides the rock and roll, our definitely most profitable and most, historically significant opponents. And, I hate for people who saw the late 90s WWF stuff and all that stuff to think that was the Road Warriors, because it was a different time and place then. But especially from the time they started in Georgia, but really when they started kicking it in good in late 84, early 85, the AWA stuff, then when Crockett snatched them, through the time they left WCW, that was the fucking heyday of the Road Warriors. And there was nobody more. They were a tag team as like Rocca and Perez in the 50s. You could put them on the fucking card. It didn't need a world title match, single main event, whatever. The Road Warriors were as big at the box office as anybody that we had in the company at the time.
In terms of wrestling history, what's their standing as a drawing card, as a attraction worldwide? Obviously, big stars in Japan huge. And everywhere they went in America.
Well, yeah, because every time that the Japanese people would see those tapes on TV, they'd be, oh my God, they were tailor-made for Japan. And even though they didn't get to do a huge run as partners with each other, they were still a major force. And then Hawk comprised the team with, who was it? Kensuke Sasaki, the Hellraisers?
Yeah, but they were pretty big in all Japan for several years before that.
But I mean, they didn't get the 90s part. The 80s run when they were at All Japan was because they were being booked through the NWA. And they were definitely huge there. But I mean, I just wish they hadn't have broken up in the 90s and other partners, and it got confusing, and that WWF run was and Animal had and this is why Lloyd's of London, one of the reasons, along with Rick Rude and I can't remember who all else, but one of the reasons Kurt Hennig.
It was all the Minnesota guys.
Yeah, Lloyd's of London doesn't insure wrestlers anymore and hadn't for some time because Animal had an insurance policy, and when he did get a legitimate back injury, he collected and retired from wrestling. But when he came back, the settlement was, because we were then in the WWF, we were trying to book these guys in different ways. He had made a settlement that his career as a singles wrestler was over. He could never have another singles match, but he could have a tag team match. So we could book the Road Warriors, but we couldn't book Joe as a single, or it would void his insurance settlement. It was, I don't know. But anyway, I always remember the Road Warriors, that fucking 80s run, and their legacy and the way they'll be remembered. They were the modern day Rocca and Perez, not in terms of style or by any means, but because they were the only real Rocca and Perez were the only tag team that was ever the #1 box office draw in a calendar year in the wrestling business because of their incredible run in the Northeast. The Road Warriors were the closest thing to that because they were the closest thing to being a tag team top box office attraction in the business after Rocca and Perez. It was always, it could have been Andre, or it could have been Bruno, or it could have been the NWA champion. It was never a tag team. Even the Midnight and Rock and Roll, overall, for that hot couple of years that we had, still we cracked the top 10 list, but we didn't get into a top position. The Road Warriors were as close as any tag team has come since then. And everybody remembers the entrance. Everybody remembers the music. Everybody remembers the promos. Everybody remembers the whole fucking deal. And they were the most badass team in wrestling. And that's why for that whole run, until it started getting monkey with, but that whole first run, 9 years, they were always main event guys, always used on top. They had the biggest contract for Crockett when he started giving out contracts. They had the biggest behind Flair and Sting and Luger when WCW started giving them out. And they even had they had a better fucking deal because they negotiated maximum dates. So they got $2,500 each for 200 dates a year. And Paul got a grand. No, wait a minute. It was $2,000 each for 250 dates. That's because it was $500,000. And Paul got to be their manager, got half of that. So he got $1,000 for 250 dates, or $250,000. And Turner Broadcasting wouldn't have turned loose of that amount of money if they hadn't been synonymous with the company. So anyway.
When was the first time you saw a pair of Zubaz pants?
On one of the Minnesota guys. That's another thing people might not know. They got in. It was, I think Darso was in it too. They all the Minnesota guys started using the same financial manager when they started making all this big money. And one of the first companies they invested in was the Zubaz pants, because they were big and baggy for the weightlifting guys. I liked them because of my big, broad, white, fat ass. But they liked them because you could do squats and everything. So the wrestlers wearing Zubaz all over the 80s and early 90s in the wrestling business, the Road Warriors were making money off of, or handing out free samples. They did that all the time.
They helped popularize the Ribera Steakhouse jackets as well.
Yeah, they could have worn some of the shit the guys are wearing on AEW and made it look cool, because it just did.
And a lot of people think like the AWA died as soon as Hulk Hogan left. But the Road Warriors were really responsible for holding it up for a couple of years after that.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, and that's when we first went to work for Crockett, they were starting to do the cross-promotional matches where Crockett would send the Russians to the AWA to Vern to work with the Road Warriors, and they were taking the match around the country in different promotions. And, besides the fact we knew we were going to have to work with these guys eventually, it was there were huge crowds. And honestly, who was it? The only other team to beat the Road Warriors when they finally decided to make the deal with Crockett and come for the big money. They did drop the belts on the way out in the AWA to Steve Regal and Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, who probably on their best day, they never figured they were going to get to beat the Road Warriors, but they got a disputed job out of them there.
Hey, did Stan ever tell you the story about the Fabulous Ones Road Warriors match?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about already. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And there was a little residual heat actually to where when Stan replaced, and it's funny because this Crockett Cup 87 match was literally 1 week after Stan replaced Dennis as a member of the Midnight Express. And we're going into Crockett Cup in Baltimore, sold out Civic Center, and going to work with the Road Warriors, right? But there was some residual heat on the part of the Warriors. The story was that the Fabulous Ones had been booked by Vern from Tennessee. They left Jarrett and they went up to the Minnesota because he brought them in as the rock and roll baby faces. Well, the thing is, there was no Jackie Fargo tradition nor Jackie Fargo promos in Minnesota in the AWA. He brought them in as rock stars, but without that backstory that Jarrett had told, they were heelish. They were these fucking sexy male stripper looking ladies men with these flashy outfits and the rock and roll music. But they didn't have the beloved icon Jackie Fargo introducing them and behind them, so it completely switched in the AWA, and the Fabs were the heels, even though they weren't portrayed as such. And the Road Warriors, who were kicking the shit out of everybody, were starting to become the baby faces, even though they were the heels. So, and Vern just didn't get the whole Fabs thing, and he didn't get this dynamic that was going on. So one night, they're going to work in a house show, and the finish comes in, and the Road Warriors didn't like the finish. So instead of bothering to argue about it in the locker room, because there's separate locker rooms, but argue with the agent or the person giving the finish, they just went in the ring, and as they're standing there getting the pre-match introductions, I think it was Hawk went up and said, "We don't like the finish. We're going to do something else. Just do it our way and nobody gets hurt." Well, Stan hears, and this is Stan's first introduction to these giant face-painted monsters, right? When they're going to go up and work this program. So he already decides that he doesn't want any trouble. But Kern, as was his habit, is standing there as the referee does his thing or whatever the fuck. Kern is looking down at the mat, kicking shit, looking out in the front row to see what the good-looking girls look like. He's not paying a lick of attention. So when Hawk said that, Kern looked up and legitimately, because he didn't hear, said, "Huh?" And the Road Warriors thought it was, they're going to be smart about this. And here they came. Stan covered up. He's like, "What the fuck?" And they come with the goddamn jump start and fucking boom, 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 boom. And Kern's like, "Fine, whatever the fuck. I don't know what the fuck's going on here." And then they did it the Road Warriors way, and nobody got hurt. But that was, and there was still a little, just a little tinge, a little leftover steam, I think, on Stan because they loved Dennis, because Dennis fucking made him look like $1 million too. But Stan had to kind of prove himself a little bit. And then finally, everything was fine after we had a number of matches and everything. But do it our way and nobody gets hurt, huh? Oh,
And Kern can handle himself.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if it'd been like Ronnie Garvin when he shot with Hawk in the locker room at Veterans Stadium in Philly that night of the Bash. If they were wrestling, Kern would have probably taken either one down by himself and out wrestled them. But at that point, it wasn't going to be about wrestling. So, and that's where Kern would have come up short. So, it would have been interesting. And Stan would have been out in the front row probably with the girls that Kern was checking out, waiting to see what was going to happen, because he didn't want any party. He wasn't that serious about any of it, right? Oh, good Lord. Anyway, should we watch this match?
Let's watch this match. Like you said, we'll have another Road Warriors Midnight Express watch-along on the drive-thru, which comes out this coming Tuesday.
And that one will be from 86 in Raleigh for the NWA World Tag Title with Eaton and Condrey that was broadcast on the TBS Saturday Night Show. This one today, and that's on the network, that one is. This one, for whatever reason, I'd like somebody to tell me why the 87 Crockett Cup in its entirety is not on the network, or even as the entirety of the home video, which clipped the matches. But this is on YouTube, so you can tell them from here.
Right, we're going to a video on YouTube, Road Warriors versus Midnight Express. The account is Classic Wrestling Gold. Road Warriors versus Midnight Express. The first thing you would see is a fan holding up a sheet with some images of the Road Warriors on it. For historical purposes, let's point out, this is April 1987. 5 months after Starrcade 86.
Yeah.
And you falling off the scaffold, being thrown off the scaffold, whatever you want to declare it to be.
Well, I didn't either fall. I dropped. How's that? It was a drop.
Good.
It was a drop. And I should mention also, this is the it was the Midnight Express versus the Road Warriors in the first Crockett Cup in the Superdome in 1986, and they beat us there to go on and eventually become the winners. I believe. No, they went to the final match, but they lost the first year. This is the year they won. So No, which one was it?
They won the first year, I think, and then this year it was right. Dusty and Nikita.
That's right. So, point being, we had a little marriage the first couple of years. The first year, it was Midnight Road Warriors, and they won and went on to win the whole thing. This year, it was Midnight Road Warriors. They're eliminated in this match so that we go on and put Nikita and Dusty over because they were the eventual winners. That is because I keep getting the two mixed up sometimes in my head. But this was a quarterfinal match in the Crockett Cup that year. It was the second night of the two-night stand in Baltimore at the Civic Center, now the Arena. $300,000 gate for the 2 nights. Somewhere around 22,000 tickets sold, I believe, or thereabouts for the 2 nights. And this is one of my favorite matches because this is everybody had matches the night before. This night, there wasn't a lot of prep time. We had worked with them a bunch. We just went out and you just called things as it went. But the finish, which happens kind of quick, just to prep everybody on it, I had burned Ronnie Garvin, thrown the fireball in his face the previous Valentine's Day, so about 2 months before this. And so the people knew that I threw fire. In this match, to cause some chaos, to get the Road Warriors eliminated without having actually been pinned, and to give the people their money's worth, the thought was Dusty gave us the finish himself, and basically everything's going crazy, and the Road Warriors are going crazy, and I try to get in and throw the fireball at Animal, but Ellering trips me and stops me in the nick of time, and they get the racket, and they clear house, but they get disqualified after beating all of us and Big Bubba Rogers up. And the finish got over in the building. I know a lot of people will say, oh, it's a DQ today. But the people, not only on Animal's comeback, but then when like I said, when Animal gave Big Bubba that shoulder block, the place is blowing. The people loved it because that was I'll say this and I'll quit and we'll get to it. That was the formula with the Road Warriors, except for the Russians, because that was the natural Von Erichs, Freebirds kind of rivalry that worked. The Road Warriors always worked better and drew better when they had a smaller heel team with a lot of heat that they could physically throw around. Midnight Express, Tully Blanchard, and Arn Anderson. The attempts to recreate a menace in physical size, like the Russians gave to the Road Warriors, the Powers of Pain, Warlord, and Barbarian, didn't really work that good. Anytime they tried to find somebody as big and as strong, it just didn't seem like it worked. The Road Warriors were more vulnerable to the sneaky, really good workers rather than the big giants that would go toe-to-toe with them. So that's why the people always reacted better when that heel team had some heat. They wanted to see the Road Warriors throw the Midnight Express and I off the scaffold and kill us. That's why it worked. It wasn't about the quality of the match. So I think that was the formula with the Road Warriors. make the unstoppable force, and then give them the smaller guys with heat to beat up and to take apart, but always let the smaller guys cheat and get some heat so there's some doubt there. When it was just a physical, irresistible force and an immovable object, it didn't really capture people as well as you would think it might, at least over the long term. I guess I've explained that now, huh?
You have. I want to make a recommendation to everyone. You can watch this video on YouTube. Again, we're starting at 000 on the time clock. And the video is Road Warriors vs. Midnight Express. The account is Classic Wrestling Gold. But what I was going to suggest is maybe turn the sound up a little bit so you can hear the crowd. But if not, go back after this or before this and watch it with the audio, because the end of the match, the crowd in Baltimore is just going nuts for everything, especially Road Warrior Animal's comeback and the shoulder block on Big Bubba. But Jim, are you queued up? Are you ready on your end?
I'm ready to go, baby.
All right, we're going to try this like we always do. Countdown from 5, and then I will say press play now, at which point you press play. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Press play now.
Boom, and here we go, and we're starting in progress, obviously. Big power slam, that was Animal's. Animal's comebacks were always the same because he had the trademark moves, but they always got over because those were moves he should do. And see, Bobby goes to the eyes on big guys, right? Which there's no eye machine at the gym. Here comes Stan, a week as a member of the Midnight Express. He's in one of the biggest matches of his life, and he's going to bump around a little bit too. Referee Pee Wee Anderson there. Bless him. And Big Bubba was still my bodyguard, obviously, at this point. So he's at ringside at the Crockett Cup also. That was the, oh, good Lord.
You were fanning Stan, saying...
I was fanning Stan.
$1 million. $1 million.
Yes, $1 million bucks. $1 million. But anyway, I was going to say that Big Bubba had a match with Ole as part of one of these single main events on the Crockett Cup extravaganza that year. All right, and Hawk and Stan, 2 years after their skirmish in the AWA. And, you know, the thing with Hawk and Animal both is they stuck to basic stuff, but they could move for guys that size. And the clotheslines and the flying shit, boom. It was simple. It was basic, but it worked. And there a chance for Bobby to make the save and Stan to go to the eyes. And Stan's still trying to figure out the Midnight Express teamwork. There we go. And now look, Hawk's going to feed me because he's right there. And as soon as Stan gets off and the referee's back is turned, that's where he's going with me to take a little. Well, no, Bobby. Bobby first. I apologize. With the wrist tape. And you always, and there's my shot. You always use the gimmicks with the Road Warriors. That way you're not physically man-to-man, one-on-one taking over on these big guys. You've used some object to cheat, some assistance. And Bobby, just especially, we missed a lot of the shine for these guys. But Bobby was so smooth and going up for the press slams and taking the big backdrops and hitting the ropes. He was always in the right place for them so that they could do their shit and look as good as possible. But see, look, Hawk's taking plenty of big bumps because it's for the illegal guy that's cheating from behind his back. So, you know, now if Moxley doesn't sell like this these days, the guys that are supposed to be non-selling, oh, I caught the racket. Thank you. Supposed to be non-selling guys. Anyway, boom, nice leaping knee. Hawk collapses. And that was, you know, boom, you go over and you piss Animal off and he tries to get in and that gives the heels a chance to do something. But unfortunately, Bobby and Stan still getting their teamwork.
At least they have matching tights.
That's true. And over the top rope would have been a disqualification had the referee seen it because this is the NWA and folks, we wrestle. And now the referee asking the people if indeed they did throw him over the top rope. Boom. While I've got Pee Wee, here's the shot we were going to do with the racket a minute ago. And Hawk's selling like Ricky Morton.
Yeah.
Because you have to. You just have to know what to sell and how to sell it. And now, see, what can you work on these guys? Do you work an arm, a leg? They're as big as telephone poles. A lot of times Bobby would work the stomach because you take the wind away from the big guy. And boom, he's fighting up from underneath. Stan gets the chance to. I don't think Stan wanted to potato hawk anything he did. and the heels are calling this, by the way, as they go along. Because there, as I said, there was very little worked out ahead of time except for the finish. And the big bench press kickoff. Shit, Stan, get back in. Stop him. Make the tag.
Beautiful punches by Bobby Eaton. Always.
Well, that's because Bobby, he'd throw one and you'd never feel it, but he'd let you sell it. He'd give you time. And now look, and here's the big fucking boom, the boot to the face. Bobby with a little bounce. You've got to give the guy a chance. And Hawk, these tags were not the hottest in the world because the Road Warriors didn't do the roll and duck and dodge, but still the pop is enormous just because they got the tag. Somebody's VHS didn't track quite well there. Animals come back. The big backdrops that Bobby would take, it was always the same, but people always loved it. And then the big flying shoulder tackle is the flying dingbat. No, drop kick first, boom, and got the referee out. Poor Pee Wee got smashed up. No referee for the fucking pinfall, so Stan makes the save, and we get the four-way going.
And you guys took out Ellering.
Yeah, well, no, Ellering is over on the corner, because that's where, did I get Ellering? I think I did.
Either you or Bobby.
Anyway, there's the flying dingbat. It was called that because one time Bobby said, when do I come in? I said, on the fucking flying dingbat. Anyway, here I'm going to burn fucking... But Paul trips me. Boom. The animal wasn't supposed to take a bump on it, but he did. I go through the ropes. Racket shot to Bobby. Animal's got another racket shot to Bobby. And watch the bump Bubba takes. And the pop is enormous here, but when he flies through the ropes, I'm just standing up. He knocks me down, and we're falling for 5 minutes. That was not planned. And now Ellering's got the racket. Racket shots. Holy shit. The place is blowing, and they're going to hopefully forget here in a second that the Road Warriors have just got fucked, because that's what they want to do. Get the Road Warriors out of the tournament because they couldn't win it. They also didn't want to do a job, and they also want to get some heat on us and show the people that the Road Warriors got screwed to heat up any rematch we might have. And that's what Bobby took that post and let's get the fuck out of here. Jesus Christ, what more can we do? And there you go.
Crockett Cup 87, Randy Anderson bumping all over the place too.
Yep. That was about 7 minutes out of probably we did about 15, I guess. And I don't know why that's, why it was trimmed so bad on the video and why that it's not on the network. But anyway, that was what you did. You shined the Road Warriors up. You got all their shit in early. They did shit to you, but you slowed it down in the middle so they weren't just beating you to powder. Then you cheated, double teamed, used an object, got them from behind, got them down, and created some jeopardy. And then you gave them the big comeback, and either they went over or you got out of it. But that was the formula, and it worked because the people believed in those guys more than they believed in anybody else. Anyway, we'll do another one. The one from Raleigh is different because it had Dennis instead of Stan, and I believe it is longer because it was telecast mostly in its entirety on TBS. And we'll see a few more of the Road Warriors spots in their entirety on that one, on the drive-thru.
This coming Tuesday.
All right, are we done? How long have we been here?
It's been days.
All right, folks, we're done. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everybody. We miss you, Animal. We love you. And we'll see everybody next week. Bye-bye, everybody.